Hi, this is Dale Lear, designer of TRS-80 Color Baseball, and you're listening to CoCoTALK.
This is CoCoTALK, the only show in the world featuring David Ladd. It's time to grease your weasel and do whatever yo please'll, cause we're about to rock your 8-bit world.
Welcome to CoCoTALK episode 270. We've come 3/4 of the way around. We're pointing due west today.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Morning. It's afternoon.
Or afternoon, depending on where
Whatever
you are.
it is.
Or good evening.
Still morning for some of us.
Oh yeah.
How about good day or good night?
I think he's on Australian time.
Good tidings.
Oh, I like the good night part.
This concludes another episode of CoCoTALK, the world's leading live talk show featuring the Tandy Clore.
David Ladd, I have a question for you before we get started in introductions here.
Yes, how can I help you, sir?
Do you consider TeamSpeak Irregulars to be a show?
It's more like a gaming party where everybody else gets to see the shenanigans happening in play.
Okay. The reason I was asking is that Stevie's intro there says that we're the only show featuring David Ladd, and I'm not sure if it's entirely true anymore. We have to get that re-recorded. So,
well, we'll have to get opinions on that.
The only talk show featuring David Ladd.
There, if we insert that, it'll be fun.
The first show featuring David Ladd.
That would work too. There's just so much David Ladd to go around.
What show is he on now?
TeamSpeak Irregulars.
Sure.
Who's David Ladd?
Oh.
If you really want to know, just say floppy disk.
Yep, and it just appears like a magical genie.
Do you want 80 track, 40 track, 35 track? You want single-sided, double-sided, single density, double density, or high density, or even enhanced density or extended density, depending on what branch of the mechanics you want to go with.
And Ken, he's just been working on this in MAME, so you just opened a can of worms here. The show's going to be 6 hours now just with David.
Well, let's start with the 80 track, David. Let's start with the 80 track.
Mark, go ahead and do the introductions now, please.
Okay. Let's see. Upper left-hand corner, we have Mark Overhoser.
Hey, glad to be here as usual.
Okay, next over, Rick Euland.
Howdy, everyone.
You still got keyboards in stock?
Oh, yeah.
Cool. And next over, yours truly, Mark B. Top of the right-hand side, we have Grant Leedy.
Hello, everybody.
Let's see.
Check out that arm. Yeah.
We're not going to ask questions.
Probably a good idea.
Next up, with a Game On challenge, we have Ken Waters.
Hello.
And the man with the news, the L, Curtis Boyle.
Welcome to the show, everyone.
Now, man in his garage, Ron Delvaux.
It's so hot here that we can have coffee and it tastes cool.
And the master of the switches, Jason Reichard.
Howdy, howdy. And speaking of in stock, I still have some Dingo high-res interfaces left over from CoCo Fest in stock.
Cool. And where would one go to get one of those?
CocoMan.biz.
Cool. And next up, maker of all kinds of games for the past 40 years, Nick Marentes.
G'day everyone. I just woke up. It's 3 o'clock in the morning over here, and the first thing I see is David Ladd on the screen.
Surprised you just didn't go right back to bed.
That's really.
I just about did.
And last but not least, we have David Ladd.
Good day, everyone, and I hope everybody's ready for today's show. Hopefully, we'll get some floppy talk in here as well.
And I'm going to bed.
Next time, David, could you do that with enthusiasm?
David Ladd.
But I thought I already did, Jason.
Hey, Mark B.
Okay. Yes.
We need a correction on the date. It says Saturday, June 18th, 2022.
Cool. Time warp.
It's not a show without a mistake.
Weird.
Thank you, B. Rye. FTV.
That is weird.
Yeah. Actually, this isn't a live show. It's a rerun. That's why it says that.
Tape delay? No way.
Delay.
Well, that's what you get for using a CoCo real-time clock.
Hey now,
that's what you get.
My
for using the software
smartwatch
clock.
clone works perfectly fine, thank you, on my CoCo 3.
And I still need to get mine installed. Thank you, David Ladd.
Okay, I'll tell you what. When we turn this over to the next segment, I'll see if I can figure out which source that is and turn it off for now until I can figure out how to fix it.
And my clock's fine.
Should have been that one, but it didn't. Oh, it's the date that's wrong, not the time.
Yeah, sorry, it's a date.
It's
There
part
we
of the
go.
time.
There we go.
Is it Nick Marentes' time? He's already in tomorrow, isn't he? Yep. 3 o'clock tomorrow.
Jim Rye says, I hate reruns. Well, you can just stop now. Then.
Has it been
Turn
off
anytime
on
you want.
Has it been off on previous weeks?
I don't know. Maybe.
That's
To be honest, I haven't looked.
I'm pretty sure this is a rerun.
To be totally honest, I didn't even realize the date was on the screen all this time.
We need to have better pre-production meetings, guys.
I figured Stevie would have caught it and later.
Stevie is still checked out, so.
Whispering like our president.
I mean, we put the show together 2 minutes before airtime, so.
Which is better than normal, but
So, let's see.
Do we have anything to actually talk about?
well, I've seen a couple of CoCo people are at VCF, and now tell me again, it's Southeast is the one. that's running
Southeast,
again?
yes.
Yeah,
And
Southeast.
where's that? Atlanta or something?
I think it's in
I
Georgia.
believe- I believe it's in Atlanta, Georgia, or near Atlanta.
So if I'm not mistaken, it's also merged with the Southeast Gaming Convention too. If I'm
yeah.
not mistaken.
July, you need in there.
Yeah, it's like something fried,
Yeah, green
Southern
fried,
fried
Southern fried something.
gaming.
Mark,
something like
it
that.
should be July, not June.
Oh, should we just
So
cancel the
close.
show and start all over again?
Where's the
Nah.
reset button? Reset button. Where's the
It's
reset?
just a little date. It's not that big.
Anyway, I know Jim Brain's down at VCF Southeast, and I think some Barmsky or whatever, I can't remember his handle in Discord. I think he's there too, or some people possibly from the Facebook group as well. So
Yeah.
I don't know if any of them are planning on popping by. I know Jim had mentioned that he's there in the news topic suggestions. I don't know if that means he's planning on maybe popping on to give us a quick rundown of the show or not. Have any of you ever been to VCF Southeast?
I have
No.
not.
Because I don't know how is it on the scale of sizes of the VCFs, because they vary quite a bit depending which one you're talking
If I'm not
about.
mistaken, I think the Southeast one is kind of like the Chicago one, where they are not
Yeah.
bound by the traditional VCFs.
Yeah, they're not a phablet, and they're not established. The official one, I guess.
which gives them more freedom. So
So VCF Chicago, the one in Chicago is not established either?
correct. Yep.
Oh, I didn't
So
know.
the VCF Foundation, 2020, they only had 4 of them scheduled. They had the one in Seattle, it was canceled. The one in Wall, New Jersey, which was canceled. There's one in Italy, and then the one that was in Mountain View, California. Those are the only 4 official ones.
Oh, I had no idea. I just assumed Chicago was official.
Yeah, it's just if they're official, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mark, they have to actually shut down like at 5 or 6 o'clock in the evening, and then also you can't sell things at your booth. You have to sell
Correct.
things through
They're in the consignment room.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
in the consignment room, and they take 15%. Yeah.
And the Chicago one does not do that. Everything's free for Chicago.
That seems rather odd. I mean, if you want to keep supporting it as a show, why would you not allow the vendors?
Way they have it structured. So Southeast, I guess, is more like the Midwest one. So
okay, I had no idea.
And it seems to be working well because both of them, I think, are larger than the regular VCF. So.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. That it sounds like those two unofficial shows actually are probably more set up to be more successful.
Right.
Yep.
That's why I've been kind of reluctant to go to the one in New Jersey. I'm like, I'm
just curious as to why, if anybody knows why they're doing it that way, when obviously the other two unofficial ones seem to be the bigger, more successful ones.
Yeah, that would probably be a question for Jim Brain on that. He would know the history better than any of us, I think.
Okay.
So Jim Brain, if you're out there, get on here.
Or anybody else in the CoCo community that's there, because like I said, I saw some mention some other people are going to be there as well. So love to have you on to talk about it. At any rate, hopefully one of them manages to pop by or is actually listening to this. He might be too busy at the show itself. So did we want to do game on challenge results, or do you want to do Ron's Garage first?
Ron's Garage.
Yeah, it's light.
Let's not shake it up. All right, let's shake it up.
Plus, it's been a few weeks since we've shown Ron's Garage, so take it away, Ron.
We're not going to play all. We're not going to play all 40 minutes of that intro.
Nah.
All righty. So
if we did that, we have to give equal time to Samuel Gimes than Ron. So
and we'll change. We'll share the screen. Let's see if this will work. Share.
I'm still trying to figure out what's wrong with the date.
Is Ron's Garage up there?
Yep.
Okay, so what we have here is the media view of my little port in the Facebook group. Anyway, if you ever do this, all you have to do is start scrolling down and see anything that's interesting and click on it. And there is tons and tons of stuff on here. All kinds of stuff. Pictures of, famous people, cartoons, stuff that I've transposed, drinks that even say CoCo on it. Pictures of the color computer that make you think, gee, I'd like to get mine going. That's the idea. Anyways.
And we should mention that most of the graphics you're showing here, you're actually showing on a CoCo, whether you're using a CoCo VGA or
correct
iColor by Stockmaster.
Check out this bird. Pretty neat, huh?
That looks like what Nick looks like at 3 a.m. when he gets up to the show. So.
Yeah, real perky. Anyway, so I started another group. I don't need to, but
I'm shocked.
I did it anyway. Yeah. It's called The Art of Floppy Labels. And I want you guys, if you, I picked 173 of us in our group to come and take a look at this group. But the idea is, if you have some interesting floppy labels that are interesting, that you've had for years and you're tired of looking at, but other people may not have, throw them up on here and let's see what it looks like. This here is Windows 3.1 Secrets that came with the book. There's a 1 and a 2.
IDG Publishing InfoWorld.
Yeah. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I used to get InfoWorld.
And here's Word Perfect for Unix, which when I got all these floppies, I thought, oh, good, I can use these for other stuff.
So WordPerfect Office, if I remember, they bundled it with Borland's Paradox database and some spreadsheet. I think Quattro Pro, I think.
Yeah, this stuff is real old. I used to use a program. I think it might have been a CoCo program, but it could have been a IBM PC program that does labels. And this one here has some artwork from a TV show I did. There's a Microsoft Flight Simulator. There's, Tandy stuff. There's lots of shareware I have for IBM stuff, and Tandy 1000s and stuff. And like this one here is a demo for Deskmate that ran in the Radio Shack. It says CGA only. It's interesting to see.
Notice that's a standard like mailer label for printing off and then sticking on envelopes or something.
Yeah, that's what they did. Commander Keen. I don't know if you guys have ever played that one.
So Apogee and id Software are tightly related.
That's way back.
Yep.
Quicken for Deskmate.
So this is obviously for any platform. It's not specific to any particular machine.
Here's CompuServe Information Service, WinSim they called it.
What was the CoCo one called? Because they had two. They had VidTex, and then what was their newer one called?
I can't remember. Wheel of Fortune, Microsoft Windows 3.0.
Yeah.
This is 49 or what?
Ooh, elephant discs.
Yeah, these are elephant discs. I didn't think I had any, and when I ran across it, this disc is what I thought of that made me want to make the group, because back in the day they had an ad always on in the Rainbow, didn't they?
Well, they had it in all the CoCo magazines pretty well, like Hot CoCo and Color Computer Magazine had them too. And it's like a full page, full color ad for floppy disks.
Yellow, never forgets.
It's actually pretty neat artwork. I mean, it just made you want to have them.
Ron, that doesn't look like a legitimate copy of CoCo Max.
No,
It's his backup. It's his backup.
That is CoCo Max XPad.
Oh, patch for the XPad. Well, that's cool.
That's why.
He didn't want to patch his original.
Somebody here added this here, chicken crap software. It's got Steam coming up.
Jeez. That's where the poo emoji came from. Now I know.
That's pretty good.
Who knew it had such a long history?
Yeah, here's CoCo Max 3. These are originals, okay? And they have all the fonts and stuff. And it was colorware, and colorware had, when CoCo Max booted up in CoCo 2, was it CoCo 2 version? And it flipped the logo. That was so cool, wasn't it? I mean, that was really slick. We never had stuff like that for CoCo. This is military using 8-inch floppies to control their nuke launch. They're not doing that anymore.
Boy, that fills me with confidence.
Yeah. We have backups. You guys remember these flippy?
The template to cut the to make your flippy disks, to make the index hole and the write protect.
Correct. Yep.
I just used a hole punch. I just put an actual physical disk, a second one over top, and lined it up that way. That's the way I did it.
Yeah.
I used X-Acto knife, so mine were square.
I didn't care.
Anyway, so you guys got stuff you run across, throw it up here and share it with us so we can all see how awesome stuff was back in the day, because most people have thrown their stuff away.
Now, I guess the next question is: are you going to create a cassette label one too, or are you going to?
Don't give them ideas.
Or did you want to make a combined group for media? I don't know.
I did just find recently a Peaches cassette. Remember Peaches? They used to sell cassettes. This is my old Model 1, not CoCo related. Although I did have one time I had a conversion to make the monitor work on a CoCo. Has anybody ever did that using this monitor?
I never did. Nick, you're probably the only other one I could think of that had a Model 1.
I have, yeah, I've got one of those.
But did you ever hook up that monitor to your CoCo as a composite monitor or something?
Yeah,
it is composite. Yeah, it does work.
Yep. So that's it, guys. Stopping share. Thank you very much.
But one question, Ron, do you have, I think I have something that you don't have in that collection yet. I have an autographed floppy disk from David Ladd.
Oh, ooh, awesome. No.
That's got to be worth its weight in gold.
I didn't see an original leaf fax in there.
Oh, I purposely stayed away from that, but I can remedy that.
By the way, Mark, your face is on fire again.
Here, how about that?
There we go. WeFax.
WeFax.
And it's on the crawler down there.
Every time it comes across, you got to pop open the top.
Yeah.
I think when
Pop a
Ron
top.
says WeFax, that's your cue to be caller 10 on the hotline.
Okay, the show is now moving on.
Let's see.
I will mention, Ron, that I did see your invite. I've been busy with work this week, so I didn't join it yet. But now that I kind of know what it's about, I think I will join because I do have some old floppies. Not all CoCo related, though most of them are. But I got a fair bit of third-party stuff that probably isn't as common to see. So
that'd be cool.
I've got a big pile of stuff too that might be fun.
Neat.
I've got lots of Apple floppies at home.
Yeah, it's open to whoever, whatever. It didn't specify any brand or anything.
yeah, I might still have some PC ones kicking around too. I'll have to check.
So Exile in Paradise found the news story that Facebook implodes. Crash caused by Ron's Garage group list index overflowing the 64-bit registers.
You're welcome.
I'd like to bring up one thing before we move on. This whole clock problem, the real-time clock. I ain't got no stinking real-time clock, but I do have Michael Furman's real-time clock here, which sets my system time just fine. And then we also have Henry Strickland's real-time clock, which I haven't really done anything with, but that also works. So, well, I mean, these aren't real-time clocks. These are network clocks. But I still don't have a real-time clock, but I always know what time it is. I've reversed my workflow. Instead of looking at the wall and typing into the CoCo, I look at the CoCo and then fix the clock on the wall. Cool.
And I think the whole real-time clock thing has been a running joke for quite some time.
Well, exactly. I'm trying to squash it dead in the end.
Yeah.
And I fixed the clock on the show.
Ooh, even better.
So it actually pulls it live now instead of you having to type it in every week?
No, there's a script that apparently was broke when I switched over to Stevie's configuration. That
So it's all Stevie's fault.
It never got noticed.
Cool.
A gift that keeps on giving.
How many of you guys here actually wear a watch on your arm like they
Not
did
I.
back in the 30s and 40s?
I did when I was younger, up until probably the mid to late 90s, and then I stopped.
They keep pulling my hair, so I gave up on them.
Actually, mine is a Fitbit, so I use
Yeah,
it for
I just-
tracking my walking and my sleep.
I did wear one till I broke it.
Grant, you were muted.
Nope, sorry. I say, yeah, mine's an Apple Watch, so.
I have one of those old.
Yeah, smartwatches is kind of a different thing. I thought you were just talking about the actual like, plain old watches.
Right.
Now,
I mean, I've got a
how many
Fitbit
people
that I
still?
wear, and I just have a cheap Casio for when I go to the water park. I won't wear that there, but that's it.
So how many still have their watch from when they were a teenager?
I have several still.
I have
Yeah,
broken
got
one.
some in the drawer.
I think I have my talking one from Radio Shack somewhere around here.
Then you had that old Casio calculator watch with those tiny buttons you had to press to try to. Rick does.
How many had one with one button pushed in that you couldn't pull back up?
I did for a while until I took it apart and fixed that situation.
Yeah.
And thus began the career of young Mr. Ladd.
Yeah, but I also learned really well how to push people button back then.
I can imagine David Ladd wearing like a big strap around with a floppy drive, a 3.5 strapped around his wrist is what I picture.
Okay, Ken, you ready?
Sure.
Ken, do you even have a watch in that cabin?
I do. I have a digital clock back in the background, but the power goes out so often here that it's never set to the right time.
He's out there in the wilderness, so he actually has like a sundial.
I tell time by the sun.
So you're saying you have a clock that's not right any time of the day?
Yeah, pretty much.
Because a stop clock is right at least twice a day.
But this one keeps saying.
Yeah, but if it's digital, it keeps resetting. It might never be right.
Exactly.
Well,
I usually
I have
get
a
at least
battery
one power
powered-
surge a day that pops the time off of it, so I don't even bother setting it anymore.
Yeah, I think I have an old Radio Shack battery powered clock here somewhere I could send you.
All right, let's see. High score challenge. Where's the button? There it is.
Welcome everybody to this week's CoCoTALK Game On Challenge of the Week Results video. This week we played Death Chase. We had a total of 16 players. We had Mr. Dave 6309 with 35.99, Ann Arcana 6018, Margot 9087, Mark B 15,005, Damon Beals 15,758, Boat of Car 17,056, Ed Rhodes 18,197, Coco Man 18,816, Tasman 19,081, Canadian Retro Things 19,291, Rich N 21,076, Rick U 21,090, Jim Rye 22,457, Sabhead 23,329, 8 Bits in the Basement 28,196, and the number one score this week is Buck Owens with 38,102. Thanks to everybody that played this week, and we'll see you next week.
CoCoTALK salutes Buck Owens.
Now, Ken, before you get on to the discussing the game here, there were some corrections to last week's list because a couple of entries were missed. So I thought I wanted to bring that up so those people get credit.
That's how I was starting.
Good. Thank you.
That I did forget to include Boat of Car and 8 Bits in the Basement last week. So that has been remedied. I did repost the high score list. Let me see if I can just find that. So my apologies to those two. They jumped the gun and put their scores in really early, and I missed it. So there was actually 22 players last week, and so 8 Bits in the Basement came in actually third place with 15,910, and Bodekar came in 18th place with 7,670, and that was on Moon Shuttle.
Sounds to me like they jumped the gun.
They did. Before I even posted it into Discord, they had actually played the game and posted a score, so that's why I missed it. That's just an excuse, though. Just an excuse.
That should be a rule. You can't post your score until you post the game in the Discord channel.
The thing is, he had already announced it though on the air, so everybody knows.
Yeah, I had already announced it on the air. Then Curtis started doing the news. I fell asleep and forgot to post it into Discord.
On the other hand, it also shows that they're not paying attention to the rest of the show because as soon as Ken announces they're off playing games, they ignore the rest of CoCo.
Well, of course, we know Boat was playing because he was playing it live on the air, and we were trying to help him get the game going. So his score was actually part of the show last week, and I still missed it. So, oops.
We'll blame cabin fever.
There we go. It's because I'm on vacation. Actually, I blame Curtis's news. Put me to sleep, and then I, kind of messed up. So,
well, it has been called snoozy newsy.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's all Curtis's fault.
Yeah, but I'm here to relax you and calm your day. That's all.
So, by the way, do you have a blanket handy, Ken?
Why?
You need to cover up what's on the couch over there.
Yeah, it's too much Commodore stuff here.
Is that better?
One. Nope.
That's one.
Back
yeah, but there's a thick 20 in the back there.
Yeah, get that pillow on
it. And you can say I dragged the show on.
There, that's better.
Better.
That's better. That's
well, now we know the real reason why his power keeps on going out.
Actually, I can't even use those because I forgot the proprietary cable to hook them up to the TV. So,
oh, yummy.
All right. Well, moving on from all of that, now with Death Chase. So, because of course it was a newer version of an old game, we didn't, of course, have any reviews of that in any magazines, but I was thinking like kind of like they do over on the Amigos channel. If people want to write their own reviews into the Discord channel, I would be more than happy to share those.
That's a good idea.
Well, it was released in like 2009, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So the magazines were all gone by then.
Yeah, the original was released on possibly the Amstrad or the Spectrum back in 1983.
Spectrum, I think.
But then, the version for the CoCo was made. And it's often called 3D Death Chase for the original one, but it's just Death Chase because they had printed a big 3D on the front of the cassette because the game's got the 3D perspective. So people just assumed that was part of the title, but it wasn't.
Yeah. Now, I did want to ask for the people while Ken's bringing stuff up here. Does the game play fast enough for you guys? Because I did take a quick look at it at the beginning of the week, just looking in MAME in the debugger, and there's definitely some opportunities for optimization, 6 out of 9 and 6 or 9. But I think the gameplay probably is fast enough already.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know what a squirrel feels like when it runs across the road in front of you, gets all the way to the other curb, decides it's not going to make it, and turns around and runs back. Because I did that many times.
I'm going to miss that tree. No, I'm not. Turn the other way. Oh, I hit it anyway. And actually, looking on some guy, L. Curtis Boyle website here, there is in the documentation, he says that there's a hint of something special happening in 8 sectors in, but, I don't think anybody, even Buck Owens, got that far. So.
Yeah, it gets pretty complicated. The later levels, there's so many trees to try to dodge.
Yeah, basically, by the 3rd level, it gets.
Yeah, there are kind of patterns. It seems like. I mean, kind of okay, I can do this for a little while, and then I've got to go back and do this for a little while, and that seems to repeat. But I don't know if it's a real pattern, if I was just making stuff up. Because
there always seems to be that in the bigger later levels that the trees are clustered. So if you can find the spot that's less clustered, it's kind of like a path or an opening that you can go through and not have to dodge as many trees.
And getting through the pack of 3 trees, you had to thread the needle.
Yeah. I just found in the later levels that rather than trying to shoot the motorcycles, just dodge the trees and keep firing and hope you hit something.
Hit something someday.
Now, this had both keyboard and joystick controls, correct?
Yes.
What did everybody who played it here on the panel use?
Joystick.
I double cheated. I used a Bullets joystick to crank the thumb wheel all the way forward, so I didn't have to push forward to make it go. Just left and right, not scrape on the top of the joystick, and get a little faster wiggle in my jiggle there.
Well, that's why you got such a good score.
Hey, I got to cheat.
Hey, he used a regular joystick. He didn't cheat at all.
Nope.
And then holding down the fire button did seem to work better.
Yes.
Yeah, what if ever letting it up, right?
As I discovered about 10 games in, as my thumb was starting to hurt, you can just hold the fire button down. Right. I should check that more often on these games.
In fact, I died 100 times making sure that I wasn't losing points to do that or something. Trying to watch the score and avoid the trees doesn't work.
And talk about really crappy little rockets that you're firing at everything. They won't even shoot the trees.
Yeah.
You think you could blow up the odd tree that's in your way.
I like how you had to be in range to shoot the bikes, but the tank or the helicopter on the horizon you could hit, which made no sense.
Right.
Because they're bigger. They're just easier to hit.
But they looked further away.
But they're bigger. So
that saying you can't hit the broadside of the barn, that applies to helicopters and tanks too, versus just little bikes.
But my favorite part was when you cleared the level and it bongs you clear, but you know you're going to die because there's a tree right there.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can do about it. You can try left, you can try right.
You go from the forest to the Arctic and the trees are exactly the same, still right in front of you.
Right.
Do you know if the original Spectrum and BBC Micro versions did that too?
I have not played them, so
I'll have to check because I know the Amigos did a play of on the Spectrum recently, like in the last few weeks, if I remember correctly. But
Well,
I didn't.
that's where I got the idea to play the game. I will admit it. I stole the idea from them.
So Aaron's in the chat. He says Specky did. So the Specky actually left the trees in the same spot too. That does seem kind of silly. You'd figure if you're switching patrols, you should have a new terrain to start on.
Yeah.
That's a bit of a design flaw, I would say.
But there was definitely a number of times where, yeah, you shoot the last motorcycle and the tree's right in front of you, and you're like, ah, crap.
Maybe I can do this if I do it left, right, really quick when it comes back.
One thing I like that's different between the CoCo version and the other versions is that the palettes and the other computers had a lot more choice of like blacks and stuff. So they had their regular patrol, they didn't have their night patrol where everything would get darker colors. Since we don't have that kind of a palette set on the CoCo 1 and 2, it went to Arctic Patrol and switched to the white pastel palette that Nick loves so much.
Yan Sky.
Yep.
Well, depending on what settings you had your computer at, you could also get a kind of murky brown color sky.
Yeah, I saw VCC was doing some weird stuff with the colors in there.
VCC was definitely doing. I was playing on VCC last night, and it was doing some weird color palettes.
I mean, I know on a CoCo 3 you can just manually change them to whatever the heck you want, but it seems its defaults were wrong.
I have to wonder if some of it has to do with running VCC in RGB mode, but not
the basics running in composite or whatever. Yeah,
exactly.
There we go. Jim Bryan is got a nice purple sky.
Yeah, that would be the magenta.
Purple haze.
Now you're the only one out of these 3 or 4 that's running on actual hardware too, right?
No, my original hardware crashed as soon as we started playing, and so I had to go over to VCC. My SCART connector decided to mess up.
I was using real hardware, but yeah, I think your SCART converter box went a little wonky.
Yep. It's fixed now, but it does that sometimes where it will go wonky and you just have to unplug it for about an hour and then it works fine. Technology. So we had a bit of a quieter night last night playing the live show. I think, was there ever more than 4 of us?
I don't think so.
Yeah, not that I remember. I was even only half paying attention to it. I was busy trying to jam some stuff for work. So,
but yeah, so we played for a couple hours there. And when I say a quieter night, apparently it was really quiet in the first hour because Jim forgot to share sound, so he was the only one that could talk.
It was Jim talking to people that no one else could hear.
Yep.
But
he thought he had lost it.
Man,
the show was better for it, though.
Yeah, you didn't really miss anything.
So, what was your guys' impression of the game? I mean, it's an earlier 3D fly through. We had a competitor that was similar to this, called Return of the Jedi, by Thunder Vision, which actually had 3 different stages. And the first stage was flying through trees. It had a few differences. There wasn't tanks or helicopters. There was other bikes that you could run off into trees or shoot, and you had to pick up Ewoks. And it also had, simpler trees. I think there were just bars, like little rectangles, but it also had trees lying on their side too, that you'd have to navigate around. So it's a little bit different, but I think the presentation graphically here with the, the handlebars moving and stuff like that is better on this one, though the gameplay is a bit more limited in the Jedi version.
Yeah, the speed was really good with it. So we don't need to improve the speed any.
Definitely doesn't need to speed up.
Yeah, one of you tried, I think, on the stream, the double speed poke on the CoCo 3 too, and I think it was a little bit much.
Oh, that lasted for about 10 seconds.
Yeah. I wish there was a way to mute the sound. Some of the sound is really grinding.
That's on all of them from what I hear. Like, I know the Spectrum has the same issue. It's kind of this really irritating. They're trying to do a constant noise for the motorbike engine sound, and it doesn't sound like a motorbike engine at all. It sounds like,
Yet another one of the games where I play it with the sound for about 5 minutes and then it gets muted.
Sounds like another optimization there, Curtis.
Well, if I take the sound out, it'll speed up. So I don't know if you want me to do that or not.
More frames. Yeah.
Well, I might just want to change the sound a little bit, make it a little less rough.
A little less grating.
I'm not really a sound guy, so I'll have to let one of you guys handle that.
It's strictly a programming thing.
Or maybe the sound up and down with the speed of your bike.
Or change the
well, that might be limited by the graphics, because I mean, you have to do higher pitch sounds, you have to do the samples more often. But
Correct.
If you're running faster, then you have to draw more, so your machine's slowing down because you're busy doing all the graphics. So it's kind of like they're fighting each other.
Well, regardless, it ran pretty nice for a CoCo game, I would say.
Mm-hmm. I'm going
Now,
to put this.
correct me if I'm wrong, but this one runs on CoCo 1, 2, or 3.
Yeah, it's CoCo 1 and 2
Yeah,
design
so-
game. I think it only needs 32K too. I think it even runs on the Dragon 32. So
So yeah, I thought it was a decent little game. A little bit repetitive, I guess. After a little while, it gets a little bit monotonous.
well, I guess someday one of us will have to make it to that Sector 8 to see what the special thing is.
Yeah, I think if we gave Buck another day or two, he might be able to do it. I think he got up to Sector 5.
And I'm sure somebody on the Spectrum side has done that already, because I saw some pretty impressive scores over there on their challenge for the Spectrum's version of it. I don't know if Aaron remembers that or not, but and I don't know if anybody submitted anything talking about that Sector 8 bonus, whatever the heck happens.
Well, if anybody out there knows what happens at Sector 8, let us know. Save us the heartbreak of trying to actually get good enough at this game to do it.
But for its time, I mean, doing 3D graphics, basically full screen almost, and perspective and everything.
Yeah, I mean, even though
this
this is a newer game for the CoCo, like 2009, it is a game that was originally released in 1983. So
Yeah, now I'm trying to think of some other like full screen. I mean, we had some of the Battlezone clones like Rommel's Revenge and Rommel 3D, but those actually a little bit later. Those came out in 85, I think. We had Firecopter come out in 82 by Dale Lear, but that was just outlines of buildings. That was pretty
wireframe
cool.
graphics.
Yeah, and
Dino
then Return of the
Wars.
Jedi came out the same year as the original version of this did in 83. So
You can't beat Dino Wars.
or skiing, actually, I think is probably still my favorite of the 3D games on the CoCo from the early period, because that one actually does look really good and it's smooth. And he pulled every trick in the book. I looked at optimizing that. I could do it on 6 but I couldn't do anything. He was stack blasting like crazy on that as ready as it was.
So did anybody have any other tips or tricks on this game?
Watch
Personally, I
out for
found-
that tree.
Yeah, watch out for the tree. I found the best way to kill the tanks or the helicopters in the background is just not aim at them, just randomly firing, and I seem to hit them more often than if I actually tried to hit them.
Right. Because technically, it seems like you can aim your shots, they'll curve as you turn. But if you start doing that, you're going to run into a tree just milliseconds later. So
I think your thing you mentioned earlier, Ken, on the once you get to the later levels and the trees are really getting packed densely, is to find that little path that you're mentioning. Like there's a little part of the terrain that's a little bit less dense. Try to find that and go through there.
Apparently, Buck had posted in the Discord that there is an actual VR version of this game, but he said he tried it, but could only play for a couple of minutes to prevent a Technicolor rainbow
Yawn?
from coming out of his mouth.
Technicolor yawn. Yeah, I mean, my review of the game, because I did play it a bit when I was making the original webpage entry for it, is that the graphics are quite good for the time. I love the 3D perspective. It's fun, though it does get a bit monotonous. As you're saying, the sound definitely needs help. That was my only complaint about the game.
Yeah, well, lots of games I think need help in the sound department. That's why there's a mute button on my headphones.
but the really irritating sound was the one that wasn't in the game. It was just that ascending, descending tone thing that it did for no particular reason at the end of a stage. It just kind of
trying to be a siren or something like that, I think.
Yeah, it's just this has nothing to do with gameplay, and the sound didn't bother me when I was playing the game, probably because I was paying attention to trying to not die. But when the game was over and it was doing that, no.
I think I muted before I ever heard that.
The colors also of the CoCo suited that game. The greens, the browns.
Yeah, it's
Made
one of the ones
sense,
where
yeah.
it was kind of fits the palette pretty well, which is
Yeah.
interesting because it was never designed for the VDG chip in the first place. It was designed for Spectrums and BBC Micros that had more color choices. It actually did work well. Now, I was going to ask for anybody who's been around for a while, like since James McKay originally released that, he also did Glove, which is a Gauntlet clone for the Dragon and the CoCo as well. Does anybody know what happened to him? Because he did a couple of really good games. He did a few others too. I think he helped with some, was it Caves of the Unwashed Heathen he helped with or something? I can't remember. He was pretty active around the 2007 to 2010 era. And then he kind of disappeared, and I don't know what happened to him, but I'd love to see if he would want to get back into the community, since the community is actually really starting to thrive again. So kind of cool to get him back in. Does anybody ever have any contact with him from back in the day? Or
And by that silence, we'll assume that's a no.
Darn.
Need the crickets in that time.
If anybody does get a hold of him, have him contact CoCoTALK. I'd love to have him on to just talk about the games he has done, but also see if he'd be willing to come back to the community as an active member again, because he did some really good stuff.
So we need somebody just to start randomly phoning James McKay's all around North America. And
That's how I set up all my interviews. Isn't that how you're supposed to do it? Yeah.
Just have Ron have lunch with him.
That would work too. Though honestly, I don't even know where he's from. Is he from the UK or was he from the States? Canada? I don't have a clue.
I think Ron can find him.
He must be from a wooded area somewhere.
Well, he might be in a dungeon because he did Glove too with that Gauntlet game. So
I think it's UK. I recall.
All right, Ron, get your passport ready.
Yeah.
And your expense account.
Well, in that case, if Stuart Orchard or Kieran or anybody is listening here, if anybody you guys know James, maybe see if we can get a hold of him and then get him in contact with me, and I'll see if we can line up an interview with him at the very least.
And then we can start feature creeping them.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the community. By the way, here's how you could improve your games.
Oh, and I'll even send him a 6 through 9. He can make some 6 or 9 specific games. He can go to town. I mean, I think that's all we've got on the game. There's not too much to it as far as gameplay. Once you kind of get the hang of it in the first 5 minutes, you pretty well got it. You just got to get good at dodging trees.
Exactly. So avoid the trees, try not to die. So, and now let's take a look at what next week's game is going to be.
Wait a minute, I've got a recommendation, a 2-color game in BASIC for next week, and that would be WeFax. Just kidding. There's no score. Sorry.
Okay, let me just see some. All right, why? Crap. Okay, just give me a second here. Technical difficulties.
That's that Commodore in the back.
Yep. Huh, my stupid computer shut down my files.
Maybe you should run your part of the show on the CoCo. It seems to be more reliable.
It wasn't last night.
Oh, the CoCo was. It was just your SCART thing, right?
The SCART
that's
converter
true.
box.
Okay, there we go. This is next week's game.
Oh, that's MG Lustig's, what is it called? Moon Hopper.
That
right?
is
Or is it Desert
correct.
Patrol? Okay. Yeah.
Moon
He
Hopper.
did both. Yeah.
He did both, yeah. But Moonhopper, so there. This is the title screen. We will be playing it on level 3. So I will post that it's going to be on level 3.
Yeah, level 1's way too easy on that one.
It is.
You can go forever.
And I'm not going to make that mistake again. I've started testing out the levels when there's multiple levels now, so that we don't run into accidentally playing it in practice mode again.
Buck Owens will probably still make it forever on it, but at least some of us will have a chance.
Yeah, but level 1 will be more my speed.
It's like Moon Patrol, except that the biggest difference is when the shots are coming down at you. When you speed up or slow down, it moves the shots back and forth across the screen rather than your ship or your little guy on the bottom. So
yeah, you're speeding up the whole scroll, basically.
Yeah, you're speeding up the whole scroll. So, and the other thing that I will warn you about ahead of time is that if you speed up or slow down too much, the shots will wrap around. So if they're at the far end of the screen, they'll come through the back of the screen and hit you.
Shoot yourself in the butt.
Physics wasn't his strong point.
Wow.
It's more primitive than Moon Patrol, because Moon Patrol has stuff like going up the inclines with boulders rolling at you, and this doesn't have any of that. It's basically just to shoot the rocks, jump the holes, and kill the aliens. You do have the little dock at the moon base at the end of every level.
Yeah. So that is and since we've played the good version of Moon Patrol already, we're going to try Moonhopper now.
What are you trying to say, Ken?
Well, actually, Moonhopper is a little bit different, so it's not exactly the same game. It's a lot more bad guys above you shooting at you than Moon Patrol.
And I believe it does have rapid fire.
It does.
So, as a spoiler, Mr. Diffendaffer said he bought Moonhopper back in the day and it sucks. Lunar Rover Patrol is much better. So, frame your expectations appropriately.
Is it possible to have a negative score?
It's not that bad. It's playable.
I'll disagree with that. I played it a little bit and I did not mind it that much.
It's definitely easier. So if you have a younger kid playing it, they would much prefer this.
It's easier. And if you go into it without the expectations of it being Moon Patrol, then it's a decent game in its own right. It's almost a mix between something like Galaxian and Moon Patrol.
I would view it the same way as I do Donkey King and Donkey Monkey. Obviously Donkey King's a much superior clone, no matter what Boat says. But Donkey Monkey, which has less screens and the sound isn't as good and the graphics aren't as good, but it's much more player friendly. It's a lot easier. Mm-hmm. And younger kids tended to really like Donkey Monkey because they didn't die constantly. In Donkey King, you had to be a pretty damn good player to last more than the screen. So this is the same situation.
Moonhopper, get the whole family involved.
Yeah, exactly. We should have like 50 players by the time we're done this week.
Yes. All your kids, all your nieces and nephews, they should try this game.
It's easy enough your pets may even be able to handle it. We'll have to try.
I'll give that a try.
If your cat or dog or parrot are playing it, they can play on level 1.
Probably still beat us.
All right. Well, that's it for Game On this week. So I guess it's time for a snoozy newsy.
Yeah, I'll do the Game On news quick without an intro, Mark. We'll just save the intro for the real news because there's not a ton of game news this week. So
okay. I just I don't do the Game On intro anymore.
But don't bother. Like I said, there's not a ton on there. So I'll just,
okay, go for it.
Switch. We're just gonna find where I put that particular window. There we are. Oh yeah, you guys are seeing that, I presume.
Looks like Erico at it again.
Oh, I spelled his name wrong in the notes. Stupid me. All right, so Erico actually did a couple of updates on his game, which is kind of the Lunar Lander / strategy / adventure hybrid. So this is one, and he says, this is not over posting. It wasn't really. He only had a few posts there. But he's talking about some stuff. There's a shipyard in the caves that is said to be able to expand your cargo bay should you afford it. Don't tell anyone. I think that it is the one on the lava island, and he has a little bit of a screenshot. And you can see the caves get pretty intricate that you have to steer in here. There's some pretty narrow passageways. He's got like terrain and everything else in there too, of actually cities and docks and stuff. It's not just the lunar lander where you're just dealing with, just trying to navigate between caverns and stuff and landing on flat spots. So it's a lot more intricate than that. Now, he did have the animated GIF, which should be playing here. I don't know what stage it's at, but he goes through and shows multiple parts of the game here. So he's got some that are in low res graphic. I believe it's P mode 1. So here he's, kind of descending in open space, and it'll flip to the next screen, and now you can see that some of the terrain shows up type thing. And he's actually got, which is a nice little touch here, because a lot of the Lunar Lander games in Basic, I've seen just fire flames out the bottom, no matter what direction you're going. He's actually firing it from the bottom or the side. So you're actually getting the side thrusters and stuff showing up graphically. Which is pretty cool. Of course, you get the status with your.
It's a nice look, actually.
Yeah, no, he did a pretty good job on it. And it's in Nick's favorite palette again. So it's bonus points. Now, Erico himself here has a comment in the chat he just put in. And here you can see, like, it kind of zooms up and does the semi-graphics 4 thing with a bit of perspective when you land to show you the terrain you landed on. It said, cargo are the green things beside the fuel and hull. So I'll play that because, of course, this is pretty boring for the audio listeners. So he's descending down to the next screen below. And he's actually got a map. We'll get to in just a sec here, too. And there's the lava pit at the bottom. So you're nearing the bottom of where you can go. And it's a pretty narrow passageways to try to navigate. And this one, I believe it's supposed to be a computer terminal. So he's got these semi-graphics that show up when you land in certain spots with different things. You can see kind of, 3D perspective-ish type things on certain levels. Sometimes you hit these little computer controls, etc. So he's got a lot of variety in the game, actually. And it's definitely not just a Lunar Lander clone. There's a ton of extra stuff in here. And it looks like and sounds like it's kind of nearing completion. And he's actually got another one that he did here. Might as well show a little bit of the intro screen here too. So that's his kind of a splash screen. Anyway, he's actually been kind of finalizing the maps. He did this in another post, adding some visual aids and fixing some map lines. Those facilities won't be filled, but an outline. I will try to keep the line open to fit the downland background style, which of course was just outlines of the caverns rather than filling them in as well. And make sure it doesn't turn into spaghetti. That's an exact quote. But yeah, it's a pretty innovative way of doing a Lunar Lander style game with a lot of extras and mixing between the semi-graphics mode and the P mode 1 mode and going back and forth depending on what you're doing in the game. Makes for a bit of variety just in the visual presentation of the game itself. So looking forward to it, and it sounds like he's getting fairly close to having it ready. So. Next up, this is from the Dragon Group, and this was posted by Chris Oliver, courtesy of Chris Poacher. Now, Chris Poacher was on our Dragon special, and he's kind of the guy that's heading the microdeal page on Facebook. So what he's got here is the original box and tape and box art for Doodlebug for the, and of course that was a computerware game from '82, I believe, for the CoCo 1 and 2, and this is the Dragon 32 version. And then he's also got the cassette with cassette arc and Nerble Force, which is another computerware game. And that was done by one of the guys that used to work for Nelson Computer Systems, alias Softlaw. Guys that did the VIP library. They had a games division. They later, when they split it out from the main company, I'm trying to remember the name of it, Color Quest or something like that. Anyway, you can see when we've talked about this before, the Dragon had much better artwork for the most part than any of the North American stuff. There's a few exceptions in North America. We had some that did some pretty decent artwork, like Mictron/Computer Shack did. But most of the time it was just the Xerox, black print on a colored piece of paper and a baggy type thing. And they obviously went way more, professional looking in the UK.
So I got a question.
Yeah.
It says it looks like $1.99, but it's the pound symbol
It's
there.
pounds.
How do you say that?
Pounds.
Pound 199, I think. Is that how you read it?
Say pound sterling, and then they're not to confuse it.
It's
Pound 99.
How is it said?
I think they say like £1 or £1.99. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, it's not like we say $1.99. It's like £1.99. Something like that. It's
and that's like £5.99 or £5.52 or.
So what is? If something was just 99 .99, what would it be? Like 99 pence or what?
Yeah.
Is it pence?
I don't know what the current nomenclature would be.
Well, back then I
Nick.
believe it was pence.
Chip Monkey says
Help us out, Nick.
Hey, they use dollars in Australia.
Yeah, same as Canada.
Yeah, but you know,
99 pence is what Chip Monkey 6809, who's in the UK, said. I believe so.
Yeah.
Well, there you go then.
And these are decimal pence, not the old 16 to the whatever.
Not the hay pennies.
But I do like the artwork, and I know some people were actually zooming these up and making posters, and there was some official posters back in the day for some of the big titles. And the collection, we'll actually get a little bit here shortly, because there's some other people that have actually bought in collections that got a ton of these. So now this is a rather interesting one here. Cafe Sita, and I believe she's in Germany, I think. She's in mainland Europe. She's not in the UK. But you found this game, and it looks like it was made...
The continent.
Yeah, the main continent. This game is kind of a disc adventure game. It's 3 discs, so it's big. And it had some instructions in it that are English and some of them in German. So it looks like it was a cross-country release type thing. But it's got some pretty cool graphics. You can kind of see a little bit in the background here, and the manual and stuff here. So she's trying to figure right now how to dump the 3 discs out to get them onto the World of Dragon archive, so we can actually get a better look at it type thing. But I will zoom up here. Like, the cover looks like completely homemade. This is what I'm used to, like, some of the CoCo stuff I've seen in some of the fests and stuff, because somebody was basically just doing it off their bedroom, and they're like 14. So if you're used to the kind of packaging that Nick does these days, it's a whole different ball game type thing.
Obviously, they did that while they were stuck at school.
Yeah, literally. I used to do this. Like, we sold a couple of games just locally. Dwayne Downing and me. I used to scribble this out in typing class because typing was boring.
That's how mine were back then as well.
Yeah, I mean nowadays we've got so many editing tools and public domain art and stuff you can pull from that you can do all kinds of things.
So is this called the Stone of Magician?
Yeah, it's kind of an odd phrasing, I guess. I would have called it the Stone of a Magician or the Magician or something, but that's what it's called.
Of the Magician, maybe.
There's no the.
There's no the. You can actually see it on one of the later pictures.
Yeah.
But new for the Dragon was 64K, so required 64K. So the Dragon 64, you could mod a 32, and it has a big advertisement in the lower right corner there with 6-speed digital speech and sound. So, I mean, there wasn't a lot of games using the speech and sound like that, so that'd be kind of interesting just to see that on its own as well. And here, unfortunately, I can't turn it, but you can see the 3-disc set, which the labels are actually done quite well. Here's some labels for you, Ron.
There you go.
And you can see it says a Stone of Magician. It says copyright by Dragon Power Solutions, already preserved. Then it's got a Master Disc 1 and then the Zenon Disc 2 and Disc 3, which I assume is the maps for whatever world it says. But then if you look at the top half, that's German instructions. And it also seems to be somewhat icon driven, because it's actually got some of the icons kind of put out, and then it describes in German what they are, and there's some that are related to speech.
Were these copy protected? Is that why she's having a rough time getting them?
I'm not sure. She's been going back for some of the Dragon people that are more familiar with their disc format, because it's very different than ours. So they're trying to help her to create the actual archive. Because I'd love to see this and then maybe port it to the CoCo afterwards, because I'm sure this is one we never saw on the CoCo side.
It looks really intriguing, actually.
Yeah,
she was trying.
Sometimes the artwork is crappy, but it may be good.
This is a little bit of a zoom up, so you can kind of see some of the screens here. And there's quite a variety of screens as well, and pretty detailed graphics, to be honest. You can see the load and save, so obviously you can save the game on the left-hand shot. And then I'm not sure, the middle one looks like a dice game or something that you must have to play during it.
So no color at all.
No, strictly P-Mode 4. I mean, this is PAL.
Sacrifice for resolution? No.
Yeah, and in this type of a game, I would definitely pick the resolution, because I mean, you got to remember on PAL they didn't have artifact colors. They would have been, the game we just played. It would have to be one of those screen modes, and that wouldn't work well for a dungeon crawler, I don't think. But having speech and 6-bit sound samples and stuff, quite a variety of gameplay from looking at the 3 screenshots here. I'm really intrigued. I'm really curious what this game is actually going to look like. like playing it wise. So this would be
So
what
is
I'd like
this
to
a-
see.
Is this a mix of adventure game and game, you know?
Arcade? I don't know. I honestly
That
don't
middle
know.
screen looks a bit like a puzzle style game.
Yeah, and it's got
where
all
you
the
gotta-
dice. Like if you see the 1 to 6, laid out in standard dice format there, you can kind of see.
Looks like the type where you shoot the dice up and you have to make matching pairs or whatever to make them disappear.
Yeah, I guess it depends on what year. Like, unfortunately, the discs themselves, the labels have the title and the company, but doesn't list, the copyright date. So I don't know if this is late enough that type of game would have already been popular, so they would have thrown that in. Like, is it a late release, or is it something where they came up with something on their own that just nobody ever really heard of? And that far right one, that almost looks like you're wandering around like a individual
Dungeon,
screen
yeah.
flipping map pages or something.
On the left screen, there's a compass.
Yep. And then a picture of the person I'm assuming you're talking to.
Yeah.
And from what little bit I can see underneath, because unfortunately they put some overlay graphics to block part of the screenshots, which kind of sucked, but oh well. It almost looks like that it's actually in German. So maybe this was one that was actually done on multiple platforms. Because like I said, part of the manual and the cover and stuff is obviously all in English. So was this one that was purposely ported into other languages? And if so, how many did they do? So I'm really intrigued by this. I really hope that the people in the Dragon community can help her get this transferred over, because I'd really like to see it in its fullest. And then like I mentioned earlier, port it to the CoCo type thing. Now the Dragon, I'm trying to remember, for those people that have Dragons, I don't know if David Ladd's still here or not, but I believe their discs were 40 track right off the hop, so they had a bit more room. So if it fills 3 40 track discs, 180K each, that's a pretty good sized game.
Actually, the Dragon DOS supported all the way up to 80 track double sided. So
yeah, the DOS did, but what was the default drive they sold?
That I don't know, because, well, obviously
I think it was,
didn't
I think
have
it
an
was 40
official-
track. Yeah, I don't have one either. I do have the Tano, but I think it was 40 track. That was
Yeah.
one of the problems. It was immediately larger than the default CoCo ones.
Yeah. And I don't remember if they came out double sided. I think they were just single sided when they first brought them out, but they might have switched later. Like the Tandy did. I mean, the FD500 and 501 are 40 track. They just never changed basic to use it. And the FD502 is actually double sided 40 track, which unless you had OS9, you basically didn't get to use that, or you got some third party thing. Anyway, a really intriguing looking game. It's got digital speech and sound effects and stuff, and a big enough gameplay to warrant 3 discs. I mean, that's a disc bigger than Gates of Delirium. And Ken, you know how big that game is.
Yep.
I'm trying to think of other games that require 3 disc. Contras, some of the Sierra stuff. Seventh Link, which is a 40 track required CoCo 3 RPG game, and that's pretty well it that I can think of. So I mean, that's a large project.
Is this something this lady had and she stumbled across it, or is this something that was in the Dragon magazine, or?
She said, I found the original software and got permission of the author to add the VDKs to the World Dragon Archive, but I have no idea how to create them with my CoCos or PCs. And somebody told her to use, there was a PC utility that used to be able to actually read and write CoCo discs, but it doesn't work on the newest versions of Windows anymore.
Scroll down.
To what? Okay.
There's
David
a new
Wim,
comment.
right here. Oh, using the grease weasel. Of course, David had to sneak in a floppy reference there. There you go.
The thing about Windows is it basically has to be a low-level driver that accesses the hardware directly, which Windows abstracts stuff more and more. I know there's a lot of things that won't work on the newer versions because of that.
Yeah, well, if I remember the utility that actually could read CoCo disc directly, I think that quit working around Windows 7 or something, I think. XP
Yeah.
it still worked, if I remember correctly, but
Yeah, on modern PCs, the only option that you'd have would be a USB floppy drive, and those are locked to either 720K disks, F512 byte sectors, or 1.44s. So pretty much you have to have some alternate device that can bypass that.
Like say Grease Weasel.
Yeah, pretty much why I mentioned it, because that's Linux, Mac, and Windows. So
Well, I hope
David
they don't
said
get
Grease
that.
Weasel.
Hope they don't get that flux on their hands.
Now, there is a comment from Kieran in the chat here. Says, yeah, default Dragon drive would have been a single-sided 40-track drive. So that's what they defaulted to. So these probably are 40-track discs. So And Nigel Barnes says, looks great. Hope we see the archive soon. I totally agree. It looks like a really intriguing game and a rather large one. So that would, if you're into that type of game and you have the time to play it, there's a lot of playability there. I mean, I remember Gates Delirium, which is only a 2-disc game, took me like 2.5 months to solve. And I was playing it 8 hours a day and passing it off between a friend of mine who was also playing it 8 hours a day. We would share our save discs as we went. And Ken, I mean, how many hours have you put into Gates Delirium yourself so far? With maps, probably, and we didn't have that. We had to do it by hand.
With all the maps and cheats, I've probably spent almost 200 hours playing it, and I'm close to being done.
So yeah, you definitely got your money's worth out of these RPGs. That's one reason I like. Nick and I were discussing this, I think, even last night. That these games were the ones where you really got your money's worth. You paid $30, whatever, for a multi-disc set, but you got days and days and days and days of play out of it. But nobody has the time for that anymore. Everyone wants the quick hit game they can play for like 20 minutes and then, go off and watch Netflix or something. So
it's called casual gaming.
It's like food. Stolen
I like
food
the RPGs better.
Yeah. I mean, this is the type of game that is not popular anymore, retro or modern. The games now that people put that type of time investment into are usually the multiplayer online ones. You're playing with friends live, and that tends to get people to join in. Those actually will, whether playing a game for 100, 200, 300, 500 hours. But as far as doing it solo, like these games were back in the day, like the Ultimas, the Wizardries, etc., I don't know too many people that actually would put the time in anymore. Maybe if you're trapped at a cabin with no internet,
Not going to name any names or anything.
Not that we know anybody like that.
Actually, at the cabin, I don't have time to play those. It's when I'm at home I have time to play them.
And the funny thing was, Nick, when we were talking last night, you had mentioned that even back in the day, you just didn't have the inclination of the time to do some of these types of games. Like you never were into.
Well, that's right. They take too much time, and I was more into programming.
Now, were you into the Dungeons and Dragons scene at all? Like, were you into that, like the real live ones? Oh, okay. So that now, for the other people in the panel here, how many of you were into the D&D thing and would have played these longer form games back in the day? I'm just kind of curious. You got to remember, Ken, we're sometimes on an audio podcast, so you'll have to say it out loud.
Dallas Quest.
I guess me.
I played Dallas Quest.
The very first game I ever played on a computer was Wizardry.
Hey,
that's a good start.
Apple II.
Yeah, I played some of the Apple II ones like Wizardry. There's another one called Odyssey, the complete app venture.
The Legacy of Lil Gammon.
Yep. Emon.
I mean, I'd love to play this game. I just don't know if I have the time to learn German to play it.
Well, like I said, the manual's in English. So I'm sure there was an English version. So maybe we just have to manually retranslate it or something. But yeah, it's interesting to see.
The German instructions say, "You will enjoy."
Or else.
Well, at least I have Google Translate. So while I'm playing, I'll have my phone pointed at the screen translating.
Yeah, just live translating it. Yeah, there you go. I wonder if I'm really curious now. Like, are the speech samples, are they in German? Did they re-record those as well? I have no idea.
Oh, I guess Google Translate does have an audio function too, I think so.
Yeah. No, it looks like a really awesome game, and then one I've never heard of before, and it sounded like from what other people were saying there in the comments, I don't think anybody on the Dragon had really heard of it before, because I don't know how late in this, the Dragon's life, or how far past the end of the Dragon's life this came out. So I have no idea. Really curious.
Throw in a question to this girl, Kathy, and ask her what year this game came out. That'd probably be the easiest. She's got a copy of it.
Yeah, well, I mean, the fact she's trying to get it all scanned, I'm assuming like the Dragon Archive also has manual scans too. So I'm hoping she scans the manual and then scans the disc images, and we'll know all that stuff officially. And she's also in contact with the author too. So I would like to find out, where is he English, is he German, and just translated to English afterwards, or vice versa. Like to find out the whole history of it. So,
Curtis, what was there a convention when you made games that you always put the date? That the year, I guess, somewhere on the title. I mean, is that like 80% of the time, 30%?
I'd say most of the time it was on there. I mean, if you're doing a game for a magazine, you sometimes didn't bother because you didn't have a clue when it would get published. Like you might submit it in 82 and they finally published it in 84 or something. So magazine games, not as much, it'd be less. But for games that were being sold like this one was, then yeah, it's usually on there. I mean, to have a copyright without having to pay money for an actual official quote unquote copyright, you had to put the word copyright in the year somewhere on the program or on the discs, et cetera, to actually have anything to possibly, fend off a legal battle.
Or in the listing, if it didn't show up on the screen.
Some people did that, but once again, that was usually if it was a magazine style, they might say, copyright 1985 by James Diffendafer or whatever. So, and they put it as a remark, a comment in the program itself. But most of the time, you'd put it on the screen or at least on the documentation of the discs. And I was surprised, like the discs didn't even have anything mentioned on there, and the manual doesn't have anything mentioned on the cover either, unless maybe it's on the back. We don't see the whole manual here, obviously.
Hey, Nick Parentes, you do that with yours, don't you? Pretty much, don't you?
What was that?
Put the date that you made it on there.
Oh yeah, I normally do. Yeah.
Okay, we got a comment from Sixy Kieran, and he says it's Torsten Dietl. Is that the person who wrote it, Kieran? Because he's still active in the community. And then maybe we can get a bit of a history of it. That'd be kind of cool. I'll monitor the chat for that because I'm really curious to that. But once again, it looks like a really interesting game. Hi. So while Kieran's busy typing away, we'll on to the next one here. So the next edition of the CoCo Show from the Amigos is going to feature Color Robot Battle, and I think some people in our chat helped select that one. Ken, I don't know if you were involved because you're on the voting committee now too, aren't you?
I am. I didn't help select this one.
Okay, because I think Exile in Paradise, Mr. R. Alan Murphy, I think is one of the ones selected. This is a programming game. And it's actually famous enough that it actually has its own wikis and stuff. And if you go to the wikis that have stuff like Core Wars and all the other programming games that have been out over the last 30, 40 years, this is one of the highlights for early micro ones. It's mentioned on multiple wikis. And basically, it has a very simple language that you can tell that, move in a certain direction, scan in a direction, fire in a direction. They use a random element. You can monitor the borders, look for things. And you have a couple different shots. You have a cannon shot and you have a laser shot, which is, faster, but it doesn't have as much range. So you basically, with these two programs, you have both players. It's a 2-player mandatory game. Or you can play yourself, I guess, and do 2 programs. But basically, you have to do these little, very short, simple programs using its own language. And then basically you let the 2 AIs run and you see what the results are. Now, Boat's not a programmer, so he just used some of the samples that were built into the book. And you can see it forward 8, left 8, et cetera, like that. And then I'll just show a little bit of the gameplay for those who have not seen it.
It's very similar to the Apple II's Robot War or whatever it was called.
Yeah, Robot War. Yep.
Robot War, yeah.
Muse Software, the same people who did Castle Wolfenstein.
That's it. Yeah, that's the one.
Robot War. I actually think I have an original of that too.
So we'll go to one that actually does some firing and stuff now. And you can see they're starting to get a bit more complicated on some of the programming there. It's got different sound effects for different things, like if it's scanning or if it's firing or thinking to turn or whatever.
And there's no objects at all. It's just a blank arena, is it?
Yeah, just the border wall, I guess, is about the only quote-unquote object. Direct hit. Oh, you can collide too. But I think one thing, one, it teaches you some, basic programming concepts, but it's also good to show people that, programming a decent AI isn't that easy. As you can see, like, they literally ran into each other and they're now because you only have certain things you're allowed to do and you have a certain time span to do them. And, do you scan ahead? Do you scan because you figure the other guy's reversed and gone away because you hit him? There's all these different things. You can kind of see why it's hard to do a proper AI, without some randomness and stuff like that. And so it's kind of helps teach people the concept of AI, I guess, too. as well as a little bit of basic programming and stuff. So it was a fascinating game. I did play this a bit. Me and Dwayne used to play it a bit when we were, kids, and then we got into quote unquote real programming, so we didn't do it too much after that. But I know for some of the programmers or people that began programming, this is a game that a lot of them liked. I don't know if some of the programmers in the chat, like James and either James Dipdaff or James Jones or some of the others that ever really fiddled with this.
So Curtis, basically you've programmed this so you could play it again and it'll do exactly the same thing.
If you have the same program on both robots, yes. Well, it depends. There's the random function. So if your program incorporates some of the randomness, like randomly decide to turn or something like that, then it might be different. It depends on the program. Now, what is some of the comments here? I'm just trying to catch up. Nigel Barnes in the chat says many commercial games did not contain dates. Too many wasted bytes. Putting in 4-digit year isn't that big. I don't know too many that didn't bother. A few did though. Did not. 60. No, that's Kathasita on Facebook. Shared account.
Torsten Diddle is the shared account with Kathy.
So he's not the author then, because he mentioned in the comments, if that was him commenting, that he'd got in contact with the author. So he's not the author then.
Yeah, Torsten Diddle is the same account as Kathy. They share an account.
Okay. And James Diffendatter said boring at some point. I was he's talking about Color Robot Battle or something else. Oh, yes. Okay.
Yeah, it's a bit slow.
Yeah. Erico says, I love this game idea. Then James said, this teaches logic and strategy. Erico says, I still prefer the visual way of, yeah. Erico says, I still prefer the visual way of Robot Odyssey, though, but this is super cool. And this is much earlier. I mean, this is 81. So I think Robot Odyssey was at least 3 years later, if I remember. And cross-platform, kind of like Rocky's Boots and some other ones of the genre. And James says he did play the Apple II game, which you were mentioning, Nick.
Yeah.
Robot War.
Yeah. Anyway, it's interesting. I'm really going to be interested because, I mean, Aaron and Boat are not really programmers. They've fiddled a bit in BASIC. At least Aaron has. I don't know if Boat really has or not. So to tackle trying to review a programming game, this should be interesting. I imagine they're probably not going to like it that much. Because if you're not into programming or you don't have the mindset for programming at all, then this is going to be like alien territory for you. It probably is boring. I like on the panel here, how many people played this back in the day themselves? I did a little bit up front, but did anybody else?
No, but this kind of programming isn't complicated like BASIC, right?
No.
Yeah, I think there's like 20 commands or something like that.
Yeah, it wouldn't be that bad.
And it's kind of like they do them like they have them when the little competitions are where the people are programming actual robots, the robot battles that they do on TV, where you're basically doing something similar to this. Obviously, it's a bit more complicated, but you actually program the physical robots to try to scan and shoot and drive and stuff like that. And they have to take consideration, if a robot ran into you and knocked off one of your wheels, you got to try just for that. And it's more complex now. It's real, quote, real programming, but this is a very early version of that same concept. So this is kind of like the grandfather of that. So I find it fascinating from a history perspective for sure.
You've still got that I tried to outsmart the other guy in advance concept going on.
Yeah.
Battle stations makes me feel good. Blowing up ships.
I mean, like Battleship style?
Yeah.
Board game?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, James Diffendaffer mentions the factory game where you had to create different objects was another interesting game. I do remember that one faintly. I didn't see it until I started my games webpage, actually. And I don't know if I have it on there yet. But there's hundreds of games I haven't got on there yet, but anyway.
And this was sold by Radio Shack in a big folder. It had a big book and a big
full-size manual like Sands of Egypt did, yeah?
Yeah. Was it on cartridge or on disc? It was cartridge, wasn't it?
Cartridge.
Yeah.
You could save your programs and load them from cassette. This was pre-disc.
That's right, yeah.
It came out in 81. The drive from Tandy didn't come out until 82. So, I mean, this is even before they were selling drives for the CoCo. So,
Do you have a picture of what the cartridge looked like?
No, but you'll be able to see it on the Amigos when they record. And I think recording is next week. So if you catch the Amigos, they're doing their whole Saturday extravaganza to record like all 4 shows in a row. So they do the Spectrum, the Atari ST, the CoCo, and the Amiga in one shot. So if you catch them next week after our show's done, you should be able to see them. They have pictures of the manual and the cartridge, I'm pretty sure.
So if you were collecting CoCo cartridges, would this be one to collect? Or is
It's an official Tandy cartridge. It was sold in Tandy store.
Okay. But it wasn't never in the box, right? With the silver around it?
The one I have was
Not
in
the
that big
silver one, no.
plastic. It was in that big plastic sealed thing. It didn't have a box. I had the little bubble plastic for the cartridge itself.
Oh, okay.
Do you remember Sands of Egypt? The way that was sold?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Similar
like
to that, except it was
big
on
one.
cartridge instead of disc. Yeah.
Yeah.
But same size manual, like 8.5 by 11.
That size, and they had a big manual. Yeah.
And the manual is on the archive. I'm pretty sure if you want to take a look from.
I was trying to think as to whether or not I had it or not, you know.
Yeah, I mean, if you're collectors, I mean, it's not an uncommon cartridge. I did see it at CoCo Fest, for example, this past May. I think Mark Millett had one of them for sale, if I remember correctly.
I was just looking at the Robot War page for the Apple II, and it has in the C also, it has the first entry is Color Robot Battle for the Tandy Color computer.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I mean, they came out roughly the same time, didn't they?
Exactly, 1981. Actually, there's a note here that Silas Warner of Muse Software, this was actually a game that was on the Plato system. I think Thomas
Plato
Cherry
Term,
Holmes
yeah,
did-
that's the one
Plato
that
Term, yeah.
Cherry Holmes
Exactly.
was working on. Yeah.
Yeah, so it turns out that Silas Warner went to school in Indiana, but they had a couple Plato terminals that linked back to back to Illinois. So he's familiar with the system, and anyway, that's what got put on the Apple II. So
Cool. Also, Erico's commenting in the chat here. He says Lindley Hansel has a cool game on the way of this robot battle. I think it's called Angry Moth, and you do AI for squads instead of an individual object. You're actually controlling groups.
Oh.
Anyway, yeah, some cool stuff. Go ahead, Nick.
The Apple version looks similar to the CoCo one.
I haven't seen it in so long. I don't remember.
I put a link into the page. I'm trying to remember. It's been a long time since I looked at it. I think it had like a big open room, and then you're with lines around it, and then your robots would move around. They shoot at each other, as I recall.
So yeah, very similar by the sounds.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The concept's the same. You're basically programming it. Giving it program steps, and then have it execute them.
Yeah, there's the cover.
Yeah. There's example of the programming language.
I don't see any screenshots though.
Yeah, I remember
I have
that.
no idea
ad.
what it looks like. Yeah, here's the mention of the CoCo. It's a whole genre of games. I mean, the programming games like Core Wars is earlier ones used to play in mainframes and stuff like that. And those were you're teaching you a language that was more similar to a assembly language than something like this, which is kind of Pascal-ish, logo-ish type thing. Anyway,
What's at
interesting
the
stuff.
very
I'm really interested
bottom?
to see the review. Go ahead, Nick.
Go at the very bottom. Are there any links? Any other links?
What's
down there?
Oh, it says you can play it.
Maybe not
Internet
that
Archive.
one. The other link would have been
Yeah,
better, I think.
Internet Archive.
Yeah, that one. Okay, there's a video. Maybe. No,
Oh,
that's a
actually, it's actually
download.
MAME. It's actually MAME.
Yeah.
How do you start it?
No. Ah, there it goes.
Watch Curtis download MAME.
Yeah, quick, program it.
Watch Curtis boot an Apple.
What's
way before
Waz-
Macintosh.
Waz-
I've done that back in the day many times. PR number 6.
Exactly.
What's Waza a day mean? Wozniak had something to do with it?
No, there's a new disk format that for the Apple that includes all the sub information. It's called the WAS format. And so they're basically, somebody's taking the original game disks and converting them to this format. You have a demo there you can select?
I just tried to do a play. We'll see what it does. I don't know if it has a built-in default one or not. I'm not going to sit here and program one. That's boring.
Is there a way you can fast forward? Is there a little?
No, not that I know of.
Well, we're actually running in real time.
He's running MAME and he's running the disk in real time. So
Right.
Nah, this is actually going to make me program it. Never mind.
No demo.
You guys want to go? You guys can go program your own and then come back with a video next week. Oh yeah, the next two here is a bit of a different one here. So this is a guy named Dmitry Simliansky. Now these are two videos dealing with typed-in games from one of the Dragon 32 game books that were published back in the day. And it's in Russian. Now, I don't know if this guy is actually in Russia, because, I mean, a lot of the Eastern states speak Russian. A lot of Ukrainians speak Russian, for example. So I don't have a clue where he is, but he's just kind of getting into retro collecting, and he's picked up a whole bunch of stuff, and he actually pans through some of it in his videos here. But he actually typed in a couple of games here. So episode 1, he typed in a game called Alien Invaders, which is a semi-graphic Space Invaders type game. And the second one, it was a game called Guideline. But he's using real hardware. He's got some of the real joysticks, etc. there. I'll just play a little clip at the beginning here. I think I've got the translate turned on.
У меня сегодня историческое событие. Я наконец-то напечатал свою первую программу на Basic для компьютера Dragon 32.
I like how I tried to figure out Dragon. Dragon.
Показать, как все происходит. В общем-то, печатал вот этой вот клавиатуре. Чужие надвигаются вниз, а я должен в них стрелять.
I'm sure the audio listeners are loving this.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, he just goes through and he plays the game. He goes through the book a little bit. So he's just showing, kind of going through the book there, with a bunch of different basic programs. And then later on, he kind of goes through, just, the graphic mode, the Dragon supports, etc. And then he kind of goes through some of other stuff that he's got around in his thing. And then the second game he did, called Guideline. And I'm not sure exactly, I didn't get a chance to fully read here, but it's got this little mountain range it draws out in low res, and then it has this little rectangle you move around. So I'm not exactly sure what it's doing. And he's got another book here called 60 Programs of the Dragon 32. And I don't remember seeing that one. It's from Personal Computer Magazine, which was a cross-platform magazine. I think we actually showed it on the show within the last 2 weeks. I think it had the MC10 review that Jim Gary had posted about. So anyways, I don't know how far he's going to go, if he's going to do every program in the book, or exactly what he's planning on doing this, but these were just 2 episodes he released this week, and he's actually labeled them episode 1, episode 2. And I don't know how many Russian speakers we have, but that's the book he's typing them in from. If any of our Dragon viewers in the UK are familiar with that one, I remember I've seen it before, so I'm pretty sure it was a fairly popular one. But anyway, I'd never really seen Russians using dragons before, or Russian speaking, Eastern Bloc states type things, using dragons. Wasn't even aware they were sold that far east. Or would this be one of the cases where they kind of just imported them in more on the sly than directly? I don't know. I don't know if anybody here or in the chat knows, how far the Dragon was sold. I know Eurohard in Spain sold it in several countries all the way up to Germany and stuff, and maybe East Germany might have had it too. But always interesting seeing perspectives from people from other countries and what they think of some of these old computers and the old Microsoft Basic and the 6809, the VDG chip, and that type of stuff. So pretty interesting stuff. That's it for the Game On News.
Wait, okay.
Commercial break, and then you can do the news intro, and I'll actually get the regular news ready to go.
Yep. All right.
Woohoo! You are watching CoCoTALK, the world's leading weekly video podcast featuring a Tandy-colored computer. We spread the love to the past, present, and future for all models, including the original color computer, the CoCo 3, and the world-renowned exclusive French-Canadian CoCo 2, the Radio Shack.
CoCoTALK would like to thank the patrons who sponsor our program, so our heartfelt gratitude goes out to Alan Huffman, Alan Murphy, Blair Ledoux, Boat and Aaron, Brendan Donahue, Brian Weasler, Brian Walsh, Karen Anscombe, D. Bruce Moore, Daddy Burrito, Daniel Williams, Diego, Eric Canales, Glenn Hewlett, Graham Vebke, Grant B., Grant Leedy, Henry Strickland, Jason Downs, J Style, Ken Reichert, Malfunct, Melly, Michael Pitsley, Mike Rayburn, OG Hugo, Paul Fiscarelli, Paul Shoemaker, Paul Thayer, Retro Tech Time, Rick Hewlin, Rob Inman, Rocky Hill, Stephen Wagner, Steve Batson, Steve Rasmussen, Terry Steen, Terry Steggy, The Backyard Shed Gang, Tim Thayer, Tom C., Tom Gunderson, Tom Heron, Tom S., Tony C., and William Athing. Thank you ever so much, patrons.
Good morning, CoCo Land. This is Brian Schubring with Music Man here at the CoCo Fest. Having fun, fixing issues, and making things roll, and making lots of sound. Have a great day, guys.
The music is back.
Only from Retro Innovations.
Go the number 4 retro.com.
As you're enjoying CoCoTALK, we also want to remind you about the CoCo Discord server. This is a place where people come to connect, to ask questions, to provide answers, to share information, and to socialize. So when you're done, why don't you head on over to the CoCo Discord server and we'll continue the conversation there. The easy to remember link is discord.cocotalk.live. See you on Discord.
Let the Radio Shack TRS-80 put the world of color computing into your home. Instant loading program packs turn any color TV into an exciting game arcade. And there's more. The color computer is an educational aid, a home management tool, and up-to-the-minute electronic information service. The programmable, expandable TRS-80 color computer from $399 only at Radio Shack, the biggest name in little computers.
At Gsoft, we make games for the TRS-80 color computer, TRS-80 MC10, and Dragon computers. Our basic games cover the range of genres from arcade, to text adventures, to simulations, to 3D dungeon crawls. This is our latest puzzle game from Japan, Fruit Panic. So come on and drop by our website and download our latest games.
Greetings, YouTubers. Atari Leaf here, and you're listening to CoCoTALK.
From around the world, what you need to know. Get caught up on News with L. Curtis Boyle.
And now a Muppet News Flash. First, a quick follow-up about the sale of the Dragon. We've got a comment from Tom Eric Gunderson, who lives in Europe, and he says, I'm quite sure the Dragon was not sold in Eastern Europe. So if they are in Russia or in the Eastern Bloc, they would have had to bring it in separately. So thank you for the update, Tom. First one here is Jason still on the call, Mr. CoCo Man himself.
I am.
Okay, well, this is your video, so I will mute it and let you talk over it a little bit. So what is this new video you put up?
This is something I really haven't advertised, but I saw you found it, so that's fine. But it's a new YouTube channel that I've been working on with Sarah, and this just happens to be my it's kind of a vlog style channel that I had a video that I shot at CoCo Fest and just finally got all edited together in something coherent. But this is kind of our other stuff category. A lot of it's going to be trips to the amusement parks, theme parks, and fairs and festivals and that sort of thing.
Oh,
and this is me, I'm sure, stuttering over my own words and stuff. Yeah, it gets better after I stop talking.
As you cover the opening ceremonies, including Bruce singing the anthems, and of course Taylor naming. This is a camera angle I didn't see because I was on the other side, so it was kind of cool to see this.
Yeah, this is the kind of my highlights of what I shot during day one, and I need to sift through the day 2 footage and see if there's enough to make something of it, and then I have a few other park trips and things that I need to edit it. But editing is learning how to edit and getting that to do and work. It's very time consuming, and then just the learning curve on top of it. But there's a couple other videos on that channel also. That's some of our amusement park shenanigans.
What's the name of the channel?
The name of the channel is Fairly Amused.
I see what you did there.
Yes, and if you'll notice, David's name comes up in the lower third, but as the video progresses, everyone gets one lower third or one name on the screen except David. David gets one almost every time he appears on the screen with, and just a little hint, you can watch and look at that and see if you can spot the changes.
And these are the peanut butter cookies I missed out on, Dan.
Oh, I didn't get to have any either. I forgot. I was too busy talking to Henry there, but
yeah, and there's Henry running composite mode when it should be RGB or vice versa. But yeah, you got some nice footage. You actually talked to some of the people, and I didn't even get a chance to talk to everybody because I had so many people coming by our booth. I was kind of busy on my own stuff.
Free ads.
Yeah, but this is just kind of a new kind of side project, and it's all new to me, so it's I'm sure I'll get better at it. But I had a lot of fun going through. Like at the end, I have some highlights from the jam session, and I had a lot
highlights?
of well, you can't,
what jam session did you go to?
The highlights of that jam session, but either way, I took some clips from that jam session, and just going through the footage for the jam session was, it was like, it kind of everything was fresh in my mind again. And I just going through all this footage really, but especially the jam session. Oh, I get footage of David Ladd, Ladd autographing floppies and all kinds of stuff in there.
And me.
Oh yes, you're there too somewhere. Yeah.
Unfortunately, yeah, right.
Oh, this is where David almost chokes on his food when we mentioned Grease Weasel.
Well, I should turn the audio now.
Really?
Everybody was trying to remember a song all the way through, and I don't know if any of us succeeded.
Yeah, we might have to cancel this out of next year's CoCo Fest. It was so terrible.
Well, if you let Paul lead it, maybe he's actually a professional musician.
Well, it's just those Canadians. They just don't know how to sing.
I didn't sing. I know I can't sing, so that was easy.
I want to know how we got so many copyright strikes.
Yeah, like obviously the bots are getting retarded at this point because if they figured out what we were playing, that would be. But if you get somebody like Bruce who's a professional singer, and you get Paul as a professional musician that actually sings and plays guitar in bands that actually tour around Michigan type thing, then let them help run it, and I'll just try to ride on their coattails.
I don't think they were copyright strikes. I think they were strikes of a different type.
Yeah, I think they're more along the lines of like crimes against humanity type of thing. I think they were trying to file. As Rick doing a couple of his songs, including Nightmare Highway, which was awesome. It was fun. I mean, all kidding aside, it was quite fun. Well, except Stevie trying to sing that kind of sucked, but
and it was really fun going all through all this footage again. It was I relived CoCo Fest here over the last couple of weeks, going through all this again. So,
yeah, it was kind of a surprise when it came up when I was doing my standard YouTube search for anything CoCo related that showed up in the last week here, and it popped up, and it brought me back some memories. And you had some camera angles, and you talked to some people I never even got a chance to talk to, so I didn't even realize who they were, what they were selling or talking about at their booths. So it actually helped me catch up on stuff I never saw.
Damn, I'm getting gray.
Oh yeah, Oh, and you can't miss the David Ladd experience. And it was fun. And yeah.
Did Stevie flush his head down the toilet or something and it went all purple?
The reasoning was, I there was a big long explanation why Stevie did it, and I'll give you the short version, because he felt like it.
Yeah,
he wanted
alcohol may have been involved. I'm not sure.
For some reason, he wanted fuchsia hair.
I guess he really likes that Puyan palette. That's all I can think of.
Right? Yeah, that's right.
Anyway, definitely go check it out. It's a little over half an hour. I wouldn't mind seeing the day 2 one, even if it's a bit shorter.
Right. Yeah.
Because, like I said, you got to talk to some people I didn't get a chance to talk to, and I've not seen on any other videos anybody else shot that I've seen so far. And also, you got some camera angles from where your booth was, which is the opposite side. So you saw some angles of things that I never saw too, in screens and stuff that I wouldn't have seen. So,
I guess that'll have to be episode 4 of Fairly Amused. CoCo Fest Part 2.
It was fairly good. So yeah, you should.
It was fairly. I see what you did there.
Hey, go check it out on Jason's new channel. How long has this channel been running?
I've actually had this channel for well over a year, but if you go to fairlyamused.com, that should just forward you right to the YouTube channel.
Okay, so it's like a blog that you started while on the YouTube. It's just a part of it type thing.
Yeah, it's just a vlog style channel, and there's 3 videos, and it's just whatever I'm getting myself into, I guess.
Fairs and amusements. Yeah.
And other stuff. Yeah, there's 3 videos right now, and there's one where Sarah rides a log flume in 40-degree weather.
That would be fairly amusing.
Yes.
Anyway, if you weren't able to make it to the fest, you want to see the jam session, which actually was a lot of fun, all kidding aside, except for the copyright strikes. I wasn't lying. We barely got through any songs all the way through because everybody was trying to remember something off the cuff, and different people know different songs or prefer different genres, etc. So we've been saying this almost every year. We do need to sit down and have a Zoom chat between the musicians and singers and stuff here, and actually come up with at least a few songs that we can kind of practice a little bit ahead of time, so we actually know them. I mean, I like improving. We did a blues jam. That's always fun, but I would like to have a few songs we can actually get all the way through. The lyrics are ready and handy for people if they want to sing along type things, instead of quickly trying to hunt them down on YouTube. And
we could do a fish song, man.
Even fish the song. Tree is frightened.
That's completely improv. That's
yeah, 45 minutes or so, one song. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. That's pretty well. That's kind of what we sounded like, except with complete lack of talent. But
well, right. And then my elbow gave out, and I couldn't play at all, so that was fun. But we won't get into that.
Could just do Baby Shark.
Ooh.
I hate that song with a passion. I'd do a death metal version of it if I was going to do anything. Hey, go check it out. Check out Jason's channel if you're into. I guess you're primarily focusing on the amusement parks and stuff like that.
Amusement parks. We're planning on going to some fairs, and we have. After CoCo Fest, we'll have another kind of another thing. It is at a fairgrounds. It'll be our video from Hamvention 70.
Okay, so you're covering a lot of the amusement park, but you're also doing some tech stuff as well in a couple.
Oh, and Hamvention is done at the Greene County Fairgrounds and Expo Mart, or Expo Center. So it's kind of a technicality, but yeah, just whatever. But it started out as fairs and amusements, and this will be other stuff like CoCo Fest.
Cows, radios, it's all fairs.
This sounds like just the video blog of Jason's travels wherever he goes.
Whether
it be a convention, whether it be CoCo Fest, whether it be an amusement park.
Yeah,
that sounds pretty accurate.
Also, a side plug, because I just remembered I'm wearing the Taylor and Amy Show T-shirt, and you can see Taylor and Amy on the screen here. They released a video. It's not Coke related, but for any of you that are fans of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, they did a parody of a Taylor Swift song. I'm not familiar with most of Taylor Swift's catalog. What's that?
It's great.
Yeah, no, it was really good. I actually forwarded the link to Alan Huffman because he's a huge Hitchhiker's Guide fan, as are myself and Taylor and Amy, and probably a few other people on this show. And it was a really amusing one. And Alan quite liked it, and he ended up chatting with him a bit in the YouTube comments and stuff. So go check that out on their channel. Not Coke related, so I didn't put it in the news, but it's a great parody.
Mm-hmm. Bring your towel.
Yeah. Poopy Frood. Okay, next up, Jason Thorpe posts an update that is supporting the NFP09, which is a 609 floating point library. He's added some pseudo instructions to help in the debugging of it that will actually compare chunks of memory. So basically you point X and Y to two different chunks of memory you want to compare, up to 255 bytes, and then you put in the A register the number of bytes you want to compare, and then you do this fake thing, the NFP09 call, and it'll actually come back in the debugger and tell you if it doesn't match. It'll actually kind of like do a breakpoint style thing for you, so you can actually try to track what went wrong or what is different between them two. So you can actually use this as a debugging tool in the emulator that he's using or writing. So a little bit of an update on his emulator and also working on the floating point library there. So Mike Rojas has actually got a couple of things now. Rick, this is kind of a competitor to you, I think, isn't it?
Well, not exactly, because
a little different.
He's doing a whole open source project thing, which I was going to do, but he already did it, so now I'm not gonna. But yeah, kind of the same end result.
Yeah, so basically what he's doing is replacing the main circuit board for the keyboards, and this one here is the CoCo 2 keyboard. And he's got some pictures of putting it together, etc. This is kind of like adding the switches. Now, are you using the same style switches he's doing, or are these a bit?
Yeah, we're kind of doing the same thing. There's a lot of edges to this project, like how do you plug it into the motherboard and stuff that I don't see addressed yet, but I'm sure I'll get it all done. Yeah, we're both doing the same thing. It's just he's doing it as a project, and I'm just selling them.
Yeah, and that appeals to two different audiences, because some people do like to go and grab the, what are they called, Gerber files or whatever, and they actually build their own things and order their own boards. And there's people like me that we're consumers when it comes to this kind of stuff. I do not have the time, patience, inclination to learn how to do any of that. I would rather just like I did buy one from you at the fest ready to go.
And I thought you weren't allowed to be within so many feet of a soldering iron.
As long as I don't touch it or turn it on, I'm okay.
And then there's fun things like pop in a reflow oven and we're done. Well, a reflow oven that will fit that board is not really hobbyist budget device. So, yeah.
You mean you don't have 3-phase in your house?
So anyway, he'd earlier done a CoCo 3 version of this. This is the CoCo 2, and then he also posted a little bit earlier in the week about a CoCo 1 one here. Of course, this is using the chiclet keys. And then there was some discussion here that these rubber things, and I remember this from my old D board, and I think my board actually has those too. I can't remember. But basically, they start to degrade after a while, and there's no real replacement for that yet.
Right.
So it sounds like. Go ahead.
I can add every CoCo keyboard has a non-replaceable part, either the rubber domes or the little plastic levers that work off of the keycaps on the later model keyboards, or the old Alps thing that had the balls. They all have something unique that you can't easily redo. So
now the CoCo 2 and 3 keyboards, they have springs instead of this. This was kind of replacing the springs, right?
Well, they have springs. Well, they do a weird thing. They have a plastic lever arm that comes off. So the keycap smashes through a spring onto a steel plate. And then there's a little lever arm that comes off to the side to push on the switch instead of having this rubber dome thing. The advantage being no matter how hard you smash on the key, you're never going to smash hard on the switch because the little plastic arm's only going to push so hard. Okay. Of course, it's only going to push so many million times and then it's going to break. And I don't think you're going to be able to reprint something like that because of the constant torque that's on that little arm thing. So all the CoCo keyboards are kind of limited, but the switch replacements are a good way to get another, 10, 20 years out of them. And then we won't care.
And I don't believe he has the remapping the keys like you did on your CoCo 3 one either, right?
Who knows? That's a goofy thing I made up because everyone was talking about how the CoCo 2 keyboard was better for games, and I thought, that's not hard to
figure. For the games that were designed for it, where you used all 4 arrow keys, yeah. Unless
and it's 32 cents to fix, so why not?
Yeah. Anyway, he's going to be releasing these in public, so those of you that are the hobbyist, I want to make everything myself type people can go grab those once he finishes uploading them. He's actually ordered some boards to actually test with. He'll sell those off, but he has no plans on becoming a manufacturer or retailer or anything. If you're more like me and you just want to get it, working and tested and ready to go, then talk to Rick.
Warranties and everything.
Next up, Ian Maverick has been going through some of the Intercom magazines. Now, we covered these about, I don't know, a year or two ago. So this is an internal magazine for Radio Shack employees. Now, my understanding is that there was different versions of this for different countries. I'm pretty sure Australia had their own version, Canada had their own version, the United States had their own version. I think the UK did too. I'm not sure about some of the mainland European countries. I'm not sure how many articles were shared between them or if they were completely original to each other. But Ian, who's from Australia, I don't know if these are the Australian ones specifically or not. And Nick, you worked at Radio Shack. Did you ever see these when you worked there?
I didn't see. I remember they were only black and white. I don't know. This one's got a color cover, so whether this is an American one, I don't know.
Okay. Anyway, Ian posted a few shots from some of these. I'm going to go through the three here that I picked out. So this first one here from the March 1983 was actually kind of the announcements of the F board, which was the first really cost-reduced CoCo 1. Still a full-size one, but easy upgradable 64K. That was one big thing. And, redesigned just enough that the cost was starting to go down, which, of course, they took to a whole nother level when the CoCo 2 came out. They shrunk the motherboard down. And then a little bit later this year, this one here is for Ron. This is when the MC10 got the cover a couple months later for the July 1983 one. So this is a few months before the CoCo 2s were announced. And they made it the cover star.
These must be the American one because they say Radio Shack.
Did you say Tandy or?
Tandy, yeah.
Oh, okay.
And I don't think ours was called Intercom. I think they had a different name.
Okay,
And
the Canadian one was called Intercom. I do know that.
Yeah, I think the Australian one was different. Yeah.
Okay.
Which certainly they weren't color.
Well, from what I remember looking at the scans, because all these are on the Radio Shack catalog site, they have a section for these intercoms, and they've got them scanned in from the 60s. When they were dealing with actual radio equipment, et cetera. Most of the time, it's just the covers were color. The interior was all black and white, as we'll see.
Yeah. But ours, the covers were black and white as well.
Okay.
And they were upside down.
Yeah.
Well, ours were right. That one looked upside down.
So this next one here is actually some awards for outstanding achievements in the Radio Shack Research and Development Department. So they actually had 6 employees win. They got 5 people here receiving plaques. But the one on the far left is of interest for the CoCo side. That's John Prickett, who basically designed the CoCo 2, and that's what this award was for. In particular, is for designing the CoCo 2, the cost reductions that they did. And he's also one of the guys that was behind, some other parts of the CoCo later on as well, including the CoCo gimme chip stuff. Yeah. So those of you who've seen Boise and Bill Luguidis's colorful history of the CoCo, you'll see some later pictures of John Prickett. When he was looking at the Deluxe, because he still had his Deluxe computer kicking around that never got released, and he also had that the CoCo 4 mock-up with the built-in disk drives and stuff. So that's the guy. And
There's
back
a
in the day,
picture of him down below how he looks today.
Oh, okay.
Ta-da.
How old is that one? Because actually, he looks younger here than I think I've
That's
seen.
Rick Hewlin.
You're not
Mustard
wrong.
Glasses.
A bit of cool history there from the internal magazine, which I didn't know existed until the last year or two. I didn't have a clue. I never worked at Radio Shack, so I never saw it. How many people here on the panel worked at Radio Shack back in the day? I know, Nick, you did in Australia.
I did. I did.
Now, did you ever see it?
I don't remember them.
So was this like for managers only or something, or what?
Managers only, yeah.
Okay.
Now, I applied to work at a Radio Shack, but I never actually accepted the job.
Yeah, I never even worked at one. I never even thought about it. I just went and bugged them a lot.
Radio Shack hired me to do lettering on their windows a couple of times. That was interesting.
Oh, I didn't know that. Was that back when you were still out east?
Yeah, I was, like a supplier. They called me to.
You didn't work
letter on the
for
window.
Radio Shack directly.
No.
You were like a subcontractor.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Cool.
Because I knew one of the managers. It was a computer
center,
manager.
Yeah, the dedicated computer store. That's all this computer stuff instead of all the electronics things.
And they were geared more towards business computers.
Yeah, we had a small CoCo section in our computer center downtown, but it was pretty small compared to the rest. It's mostly Model 3s, 4s, 16s, etc.
The particular computer center in Rochester, it was in Henrietta, it was suburb. It had a conference room like where one of our CoCo groups used to meet there. They'd open.
Okay, we had a conference room, but they usually did that for like when they were doing like teaching seminars, like if they were bringing some people in to teach them how to use, VisiCalc or something like that. But we never touched it with clubs. It was all internal stuff. That would have been cool actually having it at a Radio Shack. We never did that.
It was neat.
We just used public libraries like Glenside. All right, next up, Carl England, and that's a name I hadn't heard from in a while. He did a lot of really cool utility programming and stuff back in, I guess it'd be the 90s. I think he did stuff like the defeater, which was for breaking copy protection and backing up, copy protected disks, a bunch of disk utility. So anyway, he did one called Super Boot. It was basically some patches to the disk extended basic for even the CoCo 1 and 2 if you kicked it in all RAM mode to allow it to use, like we are talking about the Dragon earlier, 40 track, 80 track. Here's where David comes in.
Just like ADOS.
Yeah, except I think he wasn't trying to extend it. Like ADOS tried to add a bunch of extra features, not just supporting the better drive. So it had some compatibility problems with some programs that didn't work because Art had to move some stuff around to fit in all the new stuff he added. So if you were using ROM calls, you were fine. But if you tried to directly jump into the disk ROM to do some specific feature, it might not be in the same spot, so it didn't work. And that was a common problem when Radio Shack themselves, changed the disk ROM from 1.0 to 1.1. They actually moved a bunch of crap around to fit the DOS command. And I remember at the time, like Telewriter broke and VIP broke and a bunch of other things. You had to wait for all these patches to come out. So anyway, what Superboot does is it does the patches, but it does it fairly minimally. And it also has a little bit of a sort of an STC Explorer style thing. It's a 2-pane where you can select programs, but it'll let you page through programs. But he tried to make it as small and compact as possible. So he doesn't have all stuff like supporting real-time clocks and stuff that Art added into extended ADOS. But it works with almost everything. Like he tried to make it in such a way it did not muck the ROMs around too much. It tried to modify in place so that you could still call some of the direct routines and it wouldn't bust. So he had actually done this years and years ago. And then now he's picked up a CoCo SDC. And of course, the SDC changed a bunch of things too for adding its features, like supporting drive wire, disk images, etc. And it wasn't working with Superboot. So he was asking some questions early in the week and he figured out everything on it. He's actually got it up and running now. And now he's planning on uploading the source, the executables and everything else.
Good job.
So he's asking where to put it. So he's basically, I think, decided on the Color Computer Archive. I checked there yesterday. I didn't check this morning. I didn't see it yet, but William's busy and he sometimes takes him about a week to actually get to the point of reviewing stuff. So look forward to it. So that's an alternative DOS now compatible with the CoCo SDC that lets you use 40 and 80 track drives. Who knows? That might even help porting that Dragon adventure game we were talking about earlier, if it's not fully copy protected. But he has a nice little description here. I'll just read it out for the audio listeners, just so you can kind of get an idea what Superboot's for. So it modifies disk basic to use disks up to 80 tracks, double-sided, modifies the step rates. So the default ROMs use 30 millisecond, the absolute slowest one you can use. You can crank that up to 6, which is a lot faster. And makes your drives quieter too, because that's more what a lot of them were designed for. Typically installed on multiple disks. So the way this works is a bit different. You don't install it and then it runs universally. You can actually, it creates a 1 granule file on a disk and you go to that disk, type DOS, and load it in and patch it for that disk, which means you can have a disk that's set up for an 80 track double-sided. You can have another one set up for 40 track single-sided, and you can switch between them. So if you put that other disk, you type DOS and it reboots with those settings. So you can make it, specific to whatever you're doing. So if you have like some disks that are 3.5, 80 track, and you have some 40 track, 8 5.25 or something like that, you can actually customize it for each one and you don't reboot the whole machine. You just run this quick little DOS, patches it for that particular disk, and away you go. So that actually makes it a little bit more compatible and a little bit easier to handle some different disk formats that different people might hand you disks on, as David could probably attest. As he says here, it takes 1 granule storage and it started by just typing DOS, so nice and easy. You don't have to burn a ROM or anything like that. Extremely small footprint for maximum compatibility. Once it's loaded, it displays a 2-column directory of up to 32 files on the screen at once.
Select the file with the arrow keys and it will be loaded and run or loaded and executed. If your disk contains more than 32 files, the remaining pages of files are accessed by pressing Shift up and Shift down. Up to 128 files are possible in an 80-track disk. A disk could contain up to 128, one-liners using 120 granules storage, or it could be a mix of larger files up to 158 granules. I think we normally just get 68 with the regular DOS. There was an older version that was first available in 1989, but is incompatible with STC-DOS. The incompatibility has been fixed, making large disk sizes usable with STC-DOS as well, which means STC-DOS itself gets patched. You can run 80-track disks and stuff on it from BASIC. And of course, the new version still works without STC-DOS, and he's actually planning on uploading the source code as well. So that's really cool. So I look forward to seeing that.
I wonder if that could be integrated into the SDC menu so that it does it all within that. If you select a disk that is 80-track, it'll patch
run the DOS command on that disk to fire it up the
and then that disk is always accessed as an 80.
That would be nice.
Depending on how STC Explorer determines, like I know it does know about the DOS command, because if you have an OS9 disk, it says OS9 disk, hit enter, and it'll do the DOS command basically.
Yeah.
So if it can register the fact that, like I think if I remember the flag, the first 2 bytes of track 35 have to say OS.
And here comes the feature creep.
Well, the thing is, if he's just detecting it based on that, like the SSC Explorer is detecting based on reading track 35 and seeing if that OS flag is there, then it should come up and just say, hit enter to boot the disk, and it should just do it. So I've not tried it, obviously, because it's not actually available yet, but I suspect it would work. And Nick, I mean, we talked about that last night, like some of your games are getting, our game plans are getting more extravagant with a lot more digitized music and sound, et cetera, or large graphics and stuff. And one thing you've been trying to do is keep limited to having one disk.
All on one floppy,
disk swapping or trying to mount several floppies at once and all that kind of stuff, which gets more complicated for the user. This might be a nice solution for you because they just hit, on STC Explorer, hit enter on it, it boots it up, patches it instantly to 80 track. And because it's loading it from the DOS command, which works on a 35 track drive, it doesn't do anything special to get that running. You just type DOS and it runs like a normal DOS command, and then it patches it, and then you can run 40, 80 track double-sided or whatever. So it might actually help you write some games that fill up 720K worth of data and graphics. You can write the first 1 or 2 meg game, Nick.
Yeah, right.
There's feature creep for you.
There's feature creep.
Next up, Alan Huffman. Now, I was never on the Hayes BBS back in the day. I had used robotics, so why do I want to touch Hayes? But I guess they had their own BBS and actually had a CoCo section, a fairly active one from what Alan's saying, and I did not know that. So he posted a text file on the CoCo Facebook group here, kind of showing a listing that he'd grabbed at the time. He's guessing around 1991, maybe 1992, of what files were available in the CoCo section. So I've actually loaded it up over here. And this brought back a lot of memories. I remember some of these being on FidoNet and CompuServe and Delphi, and I'm assuming on Genie, et cetera, too. So there's games, utilities, WeFax for Ron. There's some WeFax stuff on there.
Drink.
Yeah, right there for Ron.
Yeah.
And radio teletype on the CoCo, and slow scan TV receive on the CoCo, and all kinds of stuff. There's stuff on the MM1, on the TC9, TC70s you can see up here. The Delmar. So this is right at the time period when all the CoCo 4s, quote unquote, were coming out. There's OS9 stuff. There's disk basic stuff. There's a complete BBS, the Tubbs BBS system on there. CoCo Word, I don't know what that is. RAM disks. The 1 meg patch that Kevin Darling released for various utilities that needed it. T-Shell, which is that the one? Isn't that the Towel Shell that Alan and Joel, I think, did? Remember correctly? Some graphic stuff. Bonk, which is actually one of the games we've got pre-installed in EOU. The serial mouse driver from Bruce Eisted. Carl England, here we are, utility information on his utilities. We just talked about him in the previous story. This is some of his original releases that came out. Multi-view check register program. I don't think I even have it on the EOU yet. So, but yeah, there's a fair bit. I mean, this, for being a Hayes-oriented BBS, it's not CoCo specific. They would have had sections for all kinds of computers. There's a fair bit of stuff they had on here, actually. So that was kind of a blast from the past. And some of these I've not seen since the old days. Like some of these have been, as far as I know, lost. So it would be kind of interesting if people could hunt some of these down, find them, and get them uploaded to the archive, because there's some stuff missing that is on this list. And I don't know if Alan has all these. This was just a text file he downloaded, but back in the day. that was cool. Next up, and this is in the Motorola 689, 609, 6800 assembly language programming group on Facebook, which is a place I don't normally hop over to frequent, but they, Graham Toll, I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. He said, if anyone's interested in seeing yet another 6809 monitor program, here's one we used as students at Edinburgh back in the day. And now he says around 79 to 80, but all the remarks and the source code that he's got are from like 85. So I'm guessing the date's not quite right. Or maybe it's just certain files there, but it's also the local clone of the Motorola assembler, though it's not likely to be much of use since you won't be able to compile it. But he actually has put all the source code for this, and it's commented source code from Motorola programmers themselves in some cases here. So there's some pretty cool stuff from a historical perspective. Nothing we don't have covered, with modern tools, et cetera. But for those of you into the history of the 689, this is like some of the very, very early stuff. Next up, Retro Tinker, which is John Linville's blog. So he's talking about recovering VTL 09. Spoiler alert, it's not done yet. Now, this is a language I remember hearing faintly about in very early, like creative computing and Byte magazines way back in the late 70s, early 80s. And it's basically a really shrunk down programming language that is got some similarities with BASIC, I guess is probably the best way to describe it. I don't know if that's the proper way. But basically they've discovered David Weens, who was active in the CoCo community. He did stuff like the MS-DOS file manager for OS9. He did Estes 3. He worked with Sardis on the caching, disk controller, etc. He found a copy of it. Now, this was originally written for 6800, so this is an early language, like 70s for sure. And it was ported to the 6809. It was called VTL 09. And it's very, very small. So they're actually, the video here that John linked to, a guy's running it on an Altair 680, which is a 6800 version of the Altair, which was originally for the 8080. And the Altair has like, I think, 2K of RAM or something. And he's got 700 bytes free to program this language. So, I mean, it's very small language. So from a historical perspective, it's pretty interesting because it's very, very compact. And maybe him and David are kind of working together in some way. They're trying to do it in a couple different environments. They've got it to now so it's assembling, but it crashes when it runs because it was meant to run on an Altair level computer type thing. So they're kind of trying to figure out, how to get it to work on a CoCo type thing. And they're doing a couple different approaches. They're trying to do it disk-based, trying to do it in Flex, trying to do an OS9 type thing. So it's a work in progress for both of them. But it'd be pretty interesting to see because it was a very compact language. It was smaller than the Microsoft Basics at the time, smaller than the Integer Basics at the time. Fairly strange syntax if you're not used to it. It uses a lot of number sign things, and you have to actually assign pointers to the end of basic RAM yourself. You don't just let or not basic RAM, but the programming language RAM itself, you don't actually just, it boots up automatically type thing. So it's got some pretty low level stuff to it and runs you a little bit of forth that way. But fairly interesting project. I'm kind of interested to see if they can get it running between the two of them on a CoCo.
Next takes up extra now, code space to do all that automated stuff. So they're reducing the overall language by making you do part of the work.
Yeah. Which Forth did somewhat too. Honestly, you kind of built your own commands from very basic ones. That's how that worked. Next up, this is Voidstar Tech, and I believe, I'm trying to remember where, because I remember him asking about this kind of stuff, and I can't remember if it was on Facebook or in our Discord, but he's been asking questions about doing this. He actually got it all working. So what he does here is a video showing TRS-80 Color Computer 3 hooked up through drive wire cable connected to the serial IO port, connecting to Al's GeekLag BBS using Greggy Term 2.5 through a Y modem 232. So he's basically going through a whole bunch of rigmarole and actually logging onto a BBS. And he does this little 10-minute video for it. Now, Greggy Term, he said he's running on a CoCo 3, and he starts at 300 baud, then he kicks up to 12. But the CoCo 3 version, like Greggy Term was aware of the CoCo 3, you could run 1480 column screens. And the BBS appears to be trying to use like ANSI, stuff for controlling the text and colors and stuff like that. And there's an option in Greggy Term, which actually you'll see in the video, that has the option of turning VT252 emulation on. Now, of course, it didn't do the ANSI, weird characters that the PC had, but it would do the colors and position the cursor and all that kind of stuff. And he didn't turn that on, so I think he could have, and he probably would have had a better experience. But it basically just to show that it's working. So I'll just play a couple seconds on here. You can see some of the weird characters showing up when it's trying to do the ANSI stuff. But this is some old school BBSing on actual CoCo drive wire.
Drive wire.
But you can see all the little commands here, which I'm pretty sure are VT100 ANSI style character codes. That was cool because we've seen a few people like fiddling with this with some of the Jason. You probably know better than I. What's the name, or David for that matter? ESP something or other that people used to log in.
8266 or the ESP32.
Yeah, because the Y modem 232, is that just a rival of it, or is that a software-based one running on a PC?
I haven't heard of that one. Usually, Y modem was a transfer protocol back in the day with X modem and Z modem. But...
Yeah, because I remember Win modem was a software-based modem, which was a piece of crap. But
Here they're referring to that dongle that's plugged into the Wi-Fi adapter hanging off the monitor there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that's actual physically a piece of hardware?
Well, there's a piece of hardware plugged into an adapter cable that he's nicely jumpered into a serial cable that I guess runs to his CoCo. So, yeah.
Yeah, because I'll read his description on the YouTube video itself. It says the Y modem 232 works with any computer with an RS-232C port. 4-pin DIN to 9-pin serial cables are more difficult to find these days. There's a more popular drive-wire DB4 null modem cable to enable using a modern laptop to emulate various CoCo or computer devices, disk drives, modems, etc. If you just swap the transmit and receive lines on that cable, it'll work as a straight-through serial I/O cable and connect directly to a modem, including the modern Y modem 232. So to me, it sounds like this is a competitor to the ESPs of some sort, which I'm not aware of.
It might actually use an ESP on it. It's hard to say. I think the Y modem means Wi-Fi modem.
Yeah. Who's banging in the background there?
I'm so sorry I missed my mute button when I was leaving to go get this stupid cable. Because he was talking about cables. Anyone remember these?
Here, I'll stop sharing so that we can show the audience.
Remember these things? The lap-link cable? It is a null modem cable with different size connectors on.
Mark, can you switch over to show Rick so the viewers can see what he's talking about?
Yep.
I was going to say, the cable that he made up, he was emulating the old lap-link cable, which is a null modem cable with different connectors on both ends and the pins reversed. And with your happy lap-link program, you could connect two PCs together and just type copy.
Yeah, and you didn't have to worry if it was 25 pin or 9 pin. I have one of those still.
And, it's really handy on CoCo stuff because it will do all of the connections and you don't have to worry about any of the what goes where and how. It knows. Anyway, sorry, I had to go grab that because the patched together cable there is exactly what he's doing. And if you have one of these, you can just use it.
Cool. I forgot all about those because it's buried in my closet and probably has been there for quite a while.
Rick Yolen with his visual aid of the day.
Right? You gotta have one every day. It's a contract, I guess.
Connect.
Oh yeah,
So-
it's
What?
Oh, just on topic.
Okay, the next video here is Retech. Now, we have covered him a while ago because he was talking about doing a retrobrite and he decided against it. So what he did instead is he very lightly sanded, basically, the cover of his CoCo 2 because he was a bit worried because that's when the reports of retrobriting starting to have some longer-term side effects started to do. And this is kind of a follow-up video to that. So he's basically saying, like, you should not retrobrite. His concern is that basically what they've been discovering now, people that have done it, years ago, and are kind of seeing like one, it starts to fade away, it starts to yellow again anyway. So it's a temporary fix, if anything. But there've also been reports now that on certain types of plastic, it actually weakens the plastic and becomes more brittle and easier to break. And what he said, what he's basically done, like his CoCo 2 is a little bit yellow, and he just lightly sanded just enough to take off the yellow surface layer. And not enough to get rid of, like if you go on a CoCo 2, for example, on the sides beside the keyboard, you have that kind of textured feel, that kind of little tiny bumps. He sanded just enough to make it white again. And basically that is still white several years later since he did the original video. And he's not having any of the side effects of retrobriting, which actually, after making the plastic look whiter and cleaner, it does seem to weaken the plastic a bit. I mean, it's different mixtures of plastics and different time periods and circumstances that the machines, and if it's in the sun, directly, since they retrobrited, et cetera, seems to affect it differently. But it sounds like he's kind of now totally convinced that retrobiting is not a good idea. And I was actually going to ask, I know some of you guys have retrobiting computers in the past. I'm wondering if any of you hit any of these issues where things start to yellow again, or you've noticed the plastic's more brittle or whatever.
I have, yeah. I retrobrited an Amiga 4000, lasted for 6 months and started going yellow again. And I did that twice. Both times it went back to yellow. In the end, I spray painted it white. There you go. And it's still white. It still looks like the day it was done.
And it reinforces the plastic.
And it reinforces the plastic, yeah.
Well, after you've weakened it twice.
Ron, you've done retrobiting too, haven't you, in the past?
Yes, and I've had, really, I haven't had anything change, but the one computer back in the 90s I painted black is still black.
now, Ron, were you using the chemicals? What is it? Or were you just putting it out in the sun?
Chemicals with the sun.
Okay.
I used the
I think it's like hydrogen peroxide or something, but a high concentration.
Just hydrogen peroxide in a bath with sunlight.
I got some comments in the chat. So Jim Rye is one of our regulars on the Game On Challenge on Fridays. Plug. He said, my CoCo 2 re-yellowed. And then Rocky Hill, Pedro, says, not more brittle, but my stuff has yellowed a little bit. So he's done it as well. So I'm just going to fast forward a little bit. I'm going to play a little clip here. Like, he goes into general and he talks about other machines too. But the first one he talked about specifically was this CoCo 2. And let me just take a look at it. I think it was a minute 49 and he starts talking about. So I'll play that. It's a couple minute little clip there. But just for those of you who are thinking about retrobiting, have not done it, you may want to think twice, because the long-term effects might be worse than just getting rid of the yellowing.
And if you have a look at one of the videos which concerns the TRS-80 color computer, just to make it really clear, it ruins the mechanical strength of the plastic, making it much more brittle than fresh ABS, which is, most people do know that this is actually how it happens. The reason why RetroBrite seems to work is not because of RetroBrite itself, it's because of a bleaching agent. So everything you've heard about the RetroBrite process is not entirely true. And, obviously you can research the video yourself. And basically all it does is bleaches the plastic, which is why it also further damages the plastic. Really the only real way to stop the bleaching issue or the yellowing issue on an old computer is to try and reverse it slightly without using chemicals. Okay, so this is the original state the machine was in. The keyboard has been cleaned and that's really about it, along with a wipe over of the machine. You can see the dents and marks along the front.
A little more.
Not brilliant.
Interesting.
But it's something that we need to sort out. Same as along the edge here. It's exactly the same. There are scuffs all over this machine. And as you can see, the case itself really does need seeing to and sorting out, because it is in a bit of a state. Right in the back, you've got more damage, more scuffs, more nicks, more dents. RetroBrite won't get this out. So it needed a lot more than that to really repair it. And you will see that I didn't RetroBrite that machine whatsoever. Basically what I did was I cleaned the case and very, very gently flat sanded the case using very fine micro sandpaper. And the results have been brilliant. I mean, what I've got here is a machine I did almost 2 years ago. I flat sanded the machine, cleaned it off, made sure it was all functioning correctly, and that was it. And it's been a great machine, and it hasn't faded. It hasn't gone mucky, horrible, yellow, discolored or anything, which I'll show you now. Here is that machine in question. It's a Tandy color computer 2, and it's in just about immaculate condition. It's a little bit on the dusty side, mainly because it's been sat on the shelf for a while, but other than that, it's perfect. The case itself is in very nice condition. It hasn't faded, it hasn't turned to yellow, and it's still the original color. You can look all around the machine and you will see that it's color matched completely, and there was no retro bright and no paint involved whatsoever on this machine. This machine is the color it left the factory, and that was by taking a tiny layer of plastic off, and it feels nice, it's nice and smooth, but it's not enough to get rid of the texture. So if you have a look at the video concerning this, you'll have a good idea of, you know, how I did it. It's very easy, and you just got to take your time and not kind of start digging into the plastic. And then once you've done that, it appears that it doesn't cause any more issues. The actual color changing chemical doesn't seem to come through. Now, that might be because this is probably a different type of plastic, but I very much doubt it. It's still the cheap PC or cheap microcomputer plastic that they used of the day. So, you know, I don't think this is anything special. And I'll show you why. You see, this is my Commodore 128.
Anyway, I'll let you watch the remainder if you're more interested in going through the background and other machines too. But just before I go on to the next story, just wondering a quick thoughts from the panel here for those of you retrobutting or thinking about retrobutting, or even in the chat for that matter. What is your take on this? Do you think retrobutting is still worth trying at this point, or?
Well, he looks like he had a later CoCo 2, which were less susceptible to yellowing anyway.
Right, and what he did, you could use
go cleaning.
Yeah, what he did, you could use a magic sponge, trade name, to remove that level of dirt and not remove the pebble finish.
Are you referring to the magic eraser?
Oh yeah, magic eraser, whatever. The melamine sponges that you get under various brand names. Those things work really good for small scuff removal and plastic. And
I wonder what his fix is for yellow keyboards, though, because you're not going to sit there and sand the keyboard or the individual keys and lose the,
the actual letter or whatever it's on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think he directly addressed the whole yellowing problem because his wasn't particularly yellow.
Well,
It
look
had
at that
other
one.
damage,
Look at
you
that
know.
one right there.
Well, yeah, but
Those
he's
are
not
yellow
talking about
keys.
that, so he's not addressing it really. I mean, it's not
His didn't need it.
exactly.
Yeah, it looked like it was more like surface damage, like scuff marks, and
Yeah.
there looked like a few melted parts too, like somebody touched it with a soldering iron or something. Probably me.
Cords do that. Vinyl cords melt.
Well, that's
ABS.
right. Yeah, if you let them sit there, they kind of degrade and they melt the plastic. I remember we showed a video of that happening where it actually put in a large dent into the plastic. But I was just wondering if anybody else tried like a light sanding technique, like he mentioned, and he's got another video that shows that, just to take off the very surface layer of if it is yellowed, which
I
returns
say
to.
the sponges, if you don't do it too much, if you use the melamine sponge too much, you'll get a shiny spot.
Okay.
It's basically sandpaper. It's consumer version of flat sanding. Where you
I
don't
don't know if you've ever done this, but if you've ever gotten a black scratch on your white case, I'll take a little bit of acetone on a rag and just let it evaporate some, and then wipe it, and it'll take the black right off, and it won't wreck anything.
Cool.
Oh, I didn't hear about that one before. That's cool.
So steal your wife's nail polish remover and
Yeah.
get after it.
And then it smells good for a little while. What is that smell, hon? No, I don't know.
Just doing my nails.
No idea.
You're high for a week, but anyway.
That's gone.
So James Diffendapper says in the chat there, it said a lot of MC10s have that melted plastic issue, but they don't seem to yellow. And then Frank Olin Harris, Retro Rewind, says, hey, Bert on YouTube has a great chemical analysis as to why it yellows and how to de-yellow it. And James also said acetone does melt plastic, so I'm assuming you're not using too much when you did that.
No. the other thing is when he says that the plastic is altered or changed or messed up or whatever, I'm sure it's just the outer surface, not it doesn't go through the whole plastic. It's just the surface. I don't think it's ruining the whole plastic. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, like I guess for that brittleness he's talking about, if that does happen to you, is it just the outside, or does it depend how thin the plastic is at certain spots? Maybe I don't know.
Or something that's really yellow has been bathed in UV so long it's already brittle, and it not cleaning it made it brittle. It's yellowing it made it brittle. Who knows? Yeah.
Okay, so you guys kind of don't agree with him on this.
Mine haven't changed.
But I've heard from other people that they re-yellow after some time, and Nick, you mentioned your Amiga's done it twice within 6 months type thing.
Well, where do you put it in your house? Is there a light right next to it?
No, it's in a dark spot. No.
So maybe it's depending on the chemical composition of the plastic itself, like the Amiga might be using.
Yeah, I think it does. Plastic. Yeah, because my CoCo 3, which is one of the late PAL ones, doesn't yellow at all. It's a different plastic on the very last.
Yeah, you've shown on the show. It's like completely clean.
It's still
beautiful
white
white
as it
still.
was.
Yeah.
So it is to do with the plastic, or how much bromine is in the plastic.
You know what's interesting? I have a CoCo 3 in the box, wrapped up. Hasn't been taken out, and it's beautiful white. Keyboard's beautiful. And it's just as old as everybody else's CoCo. And it isn't changed color because of heat or because
or sunlight or anything else.
Sunlight or anything else. Yeah, and it's just real pretty. So go figure.
No, Frank's saying in the chat here, he said ABS used bromine as a fire retardant, and that tends to be what causes the yellowing. So the mix,
that's
how
where
much
the
bromine's
yellowing
in there.
comes from. So my CoCo would probably catch fire if it caught fire.
Well, if you let me near it with a soldering, we'll test that theory.
I've had CoCos that I've retro-brighted that the keyboard went yellow some, and I popped the keys off and put them in a bath and out in the sun, and they're fine too now.
Okay. I might like myself personally, I don't collect CoCos for the aesthetic looks. I use mine and I use them for testing programming and stuff. So I really don't care what it looks like. So it's never been something that bothered me. I will never retrobite or sand or do any of that kind of stuff. If my keys are yellow and the case is yellow, I don't care. If it runs, that's what I'm concerned
That's right.
with. So
it'll be like your teeth.
Wow.
As long as it works. I don't care.
Crikey.
So I'll have to get a whole new case. It'll be like false teeth, right? Is that what you're saying, Nick?
Yeah, that's it.
Oh my.
So I guess that makes sense because that later plastic that you got on your later CoCo PAL, and James Daffers mentioned like the MC10s tend not to turn yellow either after a lot of aging. That they probably have
softer.
less bromine.
The plastic feels softer as well. It flexes more than the older style CoCos.
Yeah.
30 years from now, they'll have a coating for it, and you won't have to mess.
Well, OG Hugo in the chat mentioned you have to use 303 aerospace protectant that will protect the plastics against UV light. And then to kind of contrary to that, Frank says, I've heard great success of just putting the sun and skipping the chemicals altogether. And I've heard that too, that just putting the sun,
the sun bleaches as well.
It takes a longer time though.
Well, yeah, but you live in Arizona. That should be just like a half a day in the sun, right? At 140 degrees or whatever it is. And I'd be more worried about, in your case, Ron, of just melting the plastic into a puddle of goo.
We got a 2D CoCo 3.
See how his hand's over the edge of the computer? If you go out in the sun like that, there's yellow marks where your fingers were.
Yeah, it's kind of like getting those tans where you've left something laying on your back or something, and you get an imprint or whatever.
I see he's got a silver Commodore 64 next to him there, so he has tried spray painting.
Yeah, I mean, I've caught a couple of his videos before. We've actually had his videos featured a couple of times when he's mentioned the CoCo, but I've caught a couple of his other ones. So he's tried a variety of techniques. He's kind of trying to do like the gamut of everything to try to figure out what really works long term versus just short term That's all right, which is why I brought the video up here for you guys to talk about, because I've never tried retrobutting and I have no intention of ever doing so. And I was wondering if you guys, now that we've covered you guys retrobutting a few years ago, who has had changes where it's gone back to being yellowed, or have you noticed, more brittle plastic or something like that? Now, Nick, obviously with your Migas, you have noticed it re-yellows in 6 months.
Very much.
Whereas Ron, you've had no problems at all, by the sound of it.
I've never had to retrobrite a CoCo 1.
Well, no.
Now, do you have one of the black plastic CoCo ones or the white plastic CoCo ones? It might change between those two. I don't know.
I think I have both.
Because the older ones were black. That's the one I had my D board. My F board's got one of the white ones.
And they were painted.
Well, yeah, the real question is, what do you do now that you can't buy spray paint for a mid-'80s Mercedes? That was the silver they used, I believe.
Well, that's why John Strong and others are working on, full-size 3D printed CoCo cases, I guess.
Yeah, that's
painted black. Painted black and make it a Vader CoCo.
Right. If you want a worst case scenario, James Diffaffer just mentioned, he says, I have a monitor that yellowed after I loaned it to my brother. It sat in the sun for a single afternoon and it turned yellow.
Yum.
Oh, jeez.
So that must be made of what, 100% bromide or something? I don't know. Anyway, interesting topic. Like I said, in my case, I'm using CoCos for practical purposes, well, as much as you could use a 40-year-old computer for practical purposes. But for me, if it runs and functions, that's all I'm concerned with. I don't give a crap about the aesthetics of it. So,
well, I'll
but
tell
people
you
that collect them,
will tell you something that will gross you out is getting a computer from an older, computer that was sitting in front of somebody that smoked heavy.
Ooh. Oh, those are
gross. Those you have to clean.
Yeah, that's like brown, not yellow. Like that's,
it's sticky.
That needs sandblasting. It's awful.
Yeah,
that's when you get one from our good friend Nick O'Teen.
And then if you open the case, it goes running in all directions.
Yeah,
that's the kind of computer you open up outside.
Yes,
I've had a few of those I picked up, and like you type on it for 5 minutes, and then anytime you put your hand up, to hold your chin or something, you just get this big whiff of it. It's like
it's like gross.
That's
Yeah, you'll go into nicotine withdrawals if you stop using that computer.
Yeah, pretty much. I had to chew that special gum there just to quit using that CoCo.
Let's get this guy going here. Jeez.
Anyhow, on to some other more pleasant things than browned CoCo 3s.
So we've got stories.
yeah, I think quite a few of us have. So color computer programming, which is a guy who just he's winging it with BASIC and does these you get to learn live with him as he's learning type thing. So it's not a tutorial. I've originally called it a tutorial channel. It's not really that. It's more he's thinking out loud. He's trying things out, and you get to come along for the journey. So in this case here, he's released 3 videos the last 2 weeks. I didn't cover any of them last week. But basically he's got a few. So the first one here is animating graphics using data lines. So it was a concept he thought of on his own. I mean, a lot of us have done this, but rather than hard coding p set, blah, 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 or, defining a variable one by one, he does read data statements and basically he draws it. And he did do some animations here. So he's got basically these animated points circling around each other.
Spinning around like that. And that's all it took. So this is how you animate with data lines, guys.
And then he goes on, and he starts expanding it to you start using circles, so it actually looks a little bit more
they're going around
robust.
Each other.
Slows it down a bit. Basic's a little slow, but it's kind of fun. I mean, if you're a beginner on BASIC, these are kind of fun videos to watch because you can learn along with him. And he does mistakes, like he doesn't cut anything out, like does something where he goes down a programming rabbit hole and then has to backtrack and redo everything. And you'll see him do renum a lot. I don't know why he does this, but he always programs with, lines being 1 apart. So like 0, 1, 2, 3 is his line number. So he's constantly have to renumber because you go, I forgot to put this in. So he renumbers the last half of the program to, kick 3 lines ahead or something like that. The whole reason that you do programming lines by 10 as a default is so you leave room for this kind of stuff. You don't have to keep renumbering. So, but like I said, he's learning on the fly. So it's kind of interesting to. It took me back, actually, because, I mean, this is the type of stuff I remember experimenting with in the 80s. I did some of these same things, the same mistakes. figuring how, better ways of doing things. You first learn hard coded stuff, then you learn, do it with variables. Now I can do it with data tables. Now I can load it. And his next part is actually kind of, going on to that. He's learning to read and write from the cassette. Now he's using an emulator in this case, but this is his first time dealing with it. And he mentioned that when he had a CoCo back in the day, he couldn't afford a disk drive, so he just had cassette. And he's kind of figuring out how that works, how to create a cassette file, how to write to it, how to check to see if you're at the end of it type thing, how to read back. I won't play the video in this case, but this also brought back a lot of memories. And because he never had a disk drive, he remembered that there was a special number that you could do for printing to the printer, named number -2. Alan Huffman's talking about this recently as well. Number 0 is to the screen. Number -1 is to the cassette. Number -3, I think, was originally for the download command for the network controllers. And the CoCo 3 kind of erased that, so it's totally gone now. I know Alan's doing a follow-up on that at some point. But the nice thing about it was input and print. If you use those number negative or number 0 or whatever, you can actually prompt the guy. Do you want to save this to cassette, or do you want to write to the screen? Do you want to print to the printer? All you do is change one variable to be a -2, a -1, or a 0, and the rest of your code stays exactly the same, which is really nice. It kind of abstracted it from the hardware you're trying to write to. Exception is if you're doing something to cassette file, you would have to do a open and close to that path. Printer and the screen are automatically open in BASIC, so you would have to add a little bit of extra code. So if the guy asked, said, I want to save it to cassette, you'd have to have a special little, if he wants cassette, open a file for output and do that kind of thing. So I mentioned, because he never had a disk drive, he was wondering if there's any other numbers in there. And I mentioned that I think it's 1 to 15, isn't it? A reserve for disk buffers, because you can have multiple files open at once. So you can open a text file here and a numeric file here or whatever else. And then you can, treat one as buffer 1, one as buffer 2, buffer 3, and you can actually simultaneously read and write between them all. So I mentioned that in there because you have disk drives. And I don't know if he's going to get into using the disk drives at the emulator at this point. But once again, brought back a lot of memories of figuring the stuff as you go.
Can remember doing this on the MC10 and not putting spaces between them. And when you had to fix it, I stopped and picked it up some other day. It was just too much. Like, forget it. I'm not gonna do that all over again.
And to be honest, that still happens to me to this day. Like, I'll be programming something, trying to get something to work, and then at the last minute you have a stop for supper, you have a brief nap, watch TV. All of a sudden you go, I did that completely wrong. I could do it so much easier if I did this. And then sometimes it's such a long rewrite, it's like, I'll worry about it tomorrow.
Yeah, not some other time. Yeah, done.
Yeah. And I think, Nick, I think you do that too, do you not?
Yep.
Apparently it never goes away, Ron. So
yeah, okay. Even though I didn't do much, I did some, and enough of it to know that my brain would go nuts if I had to. All these loops and things in your head, you're trying to think, okay, so if I do this and it's going to do that, then don't I want it to do this? And then you try it, it doesn't work, and it's like, damn. There's no one to ask,
Right?
Yeah. You have to debug it yourself. Yeah. Just back to the cigarette infested computers here. A few comments in the chat.
Do we really have to go back?
Well, some of them are kind of amusing. So James Diffendaffer, he mentioned that they refused to repair PCs that had too much cigarette tar in them. So basically it was like, you're on your own, buddy. Totally agree with that. Rocky L said this is back when the technicians were trying to put the magic smoke back into the machine.
Yeah.
Now, I wanted to ask you guys, because I do remember in the early 80s, late 70s, when I first started using computers, most of the people using them smoked. I don't know what it was from the age back then, but every adult I knew, like us kids, obviously, a lot of us didn't, but all the adults were 30, 40 years old, the engineer types, they all smoked, and they didn't care if cigarette ashes were falling into the vents or anything else. Did you guys encounter that too, or was that just up here?
I smoked my entire life in front of a computer. In fact, some of the early test equipment I bought is pre-yellowed to look like it has cigarette smoke. Under the glass, behind the gauges, it's yellow. So, yeah, it was so normal. I never thought about it.
Listen, I smoked too, but I did not. I had to have air. I either had a window open or a fan blowing at the time.
I never straight in front of the floppy drive.
Yeah.
I mean, Bill Noble, I don't want to, drag him out in this, but I will. He still smokes, and he smokes right over the keyboard too. I mean, that's just the way they do it. But everybody back then, like I'd say 80 to 90% of the adults I knew in our CoCo club did that. And it's like the old days when you used to see the pictures of people running the Greasy Spoon Diner. And there's the guy with that huge stove cooking burgers, and he's got a cigarette hand on all those ashes falling on the burger and on the bacon he's cooking and everything else. And then he serves it to you. Like that was just kind of the status quo back then. And it kind of reminds me of that. So,
an accurate description of a computer area is having burn marks on your table because someone set the cigarette down and it burned into the table.
Right.
See, that was me just trying to solder, but it's a little different. Nuke Junkie in the chat says, yes, my college professor smoked in class and in the lab. I can just imagine working in a chemical lab with a lit cigarette. Yeah, that sounds safe.
Very flammable. Be careful.
Today we're going to teach you how explosions work.
Come on down to flavor country.
Yeah, times have changed. And in that case, I think it's much for the better.
Oh yeah,
I can't believe I used to eat at diners, especially in small towns, where you could see the cook, the cigarette with a inch long ash just hanging ready to fall on your burger, and they didn't even worry about it, just fall in and go.
Adds flavor.
Yeah, this is our smoked flavored burger. Don't need a smokehouse. I got a cigarette right here. Okay, next up, to get off that disgusting topic, Jim Gary posted this. So we covered this a little bit last week. So this is that kind of universal TierraCity emulator we covered. And it covers like model 1, 2, 3, 4, 12, 16, 6000, the DT1 data terminal, the video text emulator, which is a 6809 with a special ROM, and the MC10. So Jim's actually been kind of fiddling with it. Now, one thing he's found already is that it does not currently support the Semigraphics 6 mode, which is a 64 by 48, slightly higher res that Jim has used in some of his games. So obviously it's not perfect, but for a multi-terminal emulator, it sounds like he's not too displeased with it. It seems to be running fairly well. It'll boot Xenix if you have a Model 16 or Model 12, Model 6000, etc. So thanks for Jim for actually testing it, because I don't have time to test all this stuff all the time. And I don't think anybody else in the panel has probably tested this particular emulator either. I do know it's under active development. They've been talking about it. The guy that develops it actually has been talking about it on Trash Talkers, their podcast here the last couple of months, and giving status updates on how it's going. But yeah, the MC10 version of it still needs some tweaking, but it sounds like it's mostly running. So if you're one of these people that actually is into the entire TierraCity ecosystem and not just the MC10 or just the CoCo or just a Model 1, you can get this one universal emulator. You just boot up the same program. You just pick which one you want to run. And I think it's a lot easier to run and set up and name. So might be something for you to try.
I was just thinking, isn't the video text cart that you stick in your CoCo 1 an emulator? It's emulating video text.
Essentially a CoCo.
Yeah, I mean the video text terminal, like the actual separate one that had the gray case like the CoCo, was basically just the video text ROM where the extended basic ROM would go. There was some other internal differences if I remember correctly, though. There was a couple. I had a built-in modem for one.
So it's not.
Yeah, they didn't have joystick ports or things like that.
So when you stick the cart in the side of the CoCo 1, is that?
It's just the program, basically. It's just the program.
It's not emulating the terminal?
It's emulating the Agristar or whatever.
Yeah. So it's an emulator, isn't it?
Well, it's actually just a program. I mean, the original Agristar video text terminal was a 6809 based computer specifically designed just to do modem stuff. That's all it was designed to do. So all you're doing in the CoCo side is you're just taking the program from that, like the program ROM, and basically plugging that in. And now it's using the CoCo, which does have joysticks, and there's a few. I don't think that program in particular uses joysticks, but basically it's just the program from the text terminal.
Do you know if that
the hardware is
runs
the
on
same?
Does it run on the CoCo 3? Who would ever try it?
Yeah, there were so many better terminal programs by that point. You had Greggy Term, Mikey Term, Ultimate Term, V Term, Supercom, OS Term, XCOM 9. There's so many that are so much better that I probably wouldn't have bothered, including 2 from CompuServe. Okay, next up, a few more firmer details on the Dragon meetup, the 40th anniversary of the Dragon, which we're having in Port Talbot in Wales, which is actually the home of the Dragon. And we mentioned last week that Richard Harding announced they are going to do a drive up to the old factory to show people. So October 22nd and 23rd, it's a go. It's booked. The hotel's ready to go. I think we did kind of mention that. And one thing that has changed a little bit, they've got a little fundraiser thing to pay for the conference room, and people can just donate some money for the payment. Now, if they go over what they need, they're going to be donating that money to leukemiauk.org.uk. And that's in light of John Whitworth, the creator of the Super Sprite FM Plus board, being diagnosed with leukemia, which is why he's not manufacturing boards and stuff, because he's busy going through chemo and the whole thing. And hopefully it works out really well. But they're actually donating some money to that cause because of what happened to him. I thought that was really, really cool and awesome. So I wanted to mention that. Most of the other stuff we already knew from last week, but that's an update. So I don't know if any of us are going to be able to afford with the current flight things and stuff to actually get to the UK in time for the anniversary thing in October. But I would love to go. It'd be awesome to meet all the guys there in person. We've had quite a few of them on the show during our Dragon special and just on individual interviews later on. But yeah, that would be really cool. So I'm glad they're raising some money to help pay for the conference room, because it's not super cheap from what I understand. But also if they get any excess money, that's going to a good cause. And I know Boat and Aaron are doing their children's hospital one, which Stevie and Nick and I participated with last year. I think that's at the end of July. I don't remember exact dates off the top, but they're doing that again too. So they've already started raising some money. Frank from Retro Rewind is going to match up to $1,000 of donations done to that from this company, Retro Rewind, to donate to the Children's Hospital. And I know Boat had just put on Facebook on his personal page, they'd received a special coin commemorative thing from the Children's Hospital Foundation that they have raised over $10,000 over the last few years. So they got a little coin to commemorate that they've raised that much money for it. So that's cool. That's cool too. So if you have some spare money and you want to contribute to the Children's Hospital Foundation stuff, if you watch their live stream they'll be doing, which I think is a 12 or 24-hour marathon, they're gonna have some guests and stuff on there too. So it's basically a lot of game playing, just an excuse to donate some money, basically.
Curtis.
Yep.
You look at the Dragon logo, it's pretty neat, and they have a little dragon, you know?
Yep.
The color computer doesn't have anything like that, not like Acorn and other, like Apple has the apple, you know?
Yeah, we had the TRS-80 logo with the little rainbow of 3 colors.
Yeah.
That was kind of the CoCo, the 3-color thingy.
Yeah.
Why don't you work on that, Ron?
Yeah, models 1, 2, and 3 have the TC design, right? When they boot up First
Oh, the hourglass.
Yeah, like the multi-view menu, the hourglass, some people call
Yeah,
it, but it's actually meant to be the Tandy logo.
Yeah.
Okay, now this one here is for the game collectors among you. So this guy named, or it's a girl or guy? I think it's a guy. My pardons if it's wrong. Estrella Speedster, the name on the Dragon Facebook group. And it says, "Hi guys, wonder if you guys can help me out here. I don't know too much about the Dragon, so I thought I'd ask the experts and happy to learn about new consoles. Wasn't sure if I'd gotten a good bundle here or not, or what the value of it is, if there's any decent games." And he's not planning on selling it per se. He said he might, but he's more interested in collecting at this point. So basically, it's been sitting in a guy's loft for 30 years. And he picked up the Dragon itself, plus a whole bunch of games. So I'll actually zoom up some of these pictures. You can kind of take a look at it. But once again, this gets into the cover artwork and, how much more they did with the Dragon than we did in North America. Like here's Berserk. That's the old Mark Data Products game. And that looks pretty cool. Madness in the Minotaur. And that's way better than the Tandy one or Spectral's original. Black Sanctum, Mark Data Products game as well. Danger Ranger from Screenplay. Mr. Dig from Computerware. Cuthbert in the Jungle, which is Trapfall. Devil Assault, etc. So all these different cassettes with all the different fancy artwork. And then some of the ones that were, unique to the UK as well. They do have some simpler ones like we would have been more used to. And the Dragon Magic, your first programming book, that's just a cool cover by itself on the book. We used to got this, plain, William Barton Jr. brown background with some text on it type thing. They had these fancy paintings. Kind of jealous, I'll be honest.
When in truth, it's a big fluorescent green screen.
There's a bit of a zoom up on some of the more UK ones of Rommel's Revenge, Dragon Trek, which is a Star Trek type thing, Return of the Ring, Micros Crusader, the Ket Trilogy, Drone Data Tank, Data Runner. A few others like here's Tomix's Scramble. That was a conversion.
There's Frogger.
Yep, the official Frogger. 3D Side Up Attack, which I think Ken, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that was one of our games that we think we've done on the challenge. Anyway, it just shows that even on these smaller cassettes, like the inlay artwork they had was full color in almost all cases, and paintings or really well done artwork. Whereas we usually got just text on there, or somebody quickly got their 13-year-old sister to draw something, it seems. So just such a different market from what we got here. So I thought that was cool.
Right.
Next up, this is the actual entry talking about it. And I've got the scans open in separate tabs here. So basically, David S. Gisbert, whom we've had on the Dragon Show, I believe, he scanned in the original. Now he calls them catalogs. They're actually brochures more than catalogs. But these are the brochures for the original Dragon 32, Dragon 64, and Dragon Disc Drive from Eurohard. So this is after Dragon in the UK went down and they sold the rights to Eurohard in Spain, and Spain manufactured them for a while. So these are kind of the promotional brochures they gave out. I remember Radio Shack had some of these, like for the CoCo and stuff too. So I'll show you those because I don't think most of us have seen these. So here's the actual. He's got his own little private section on archive.org, and the link's in the show notes if you want to grab it off of our Discord. And he's got some other stuff here too. He's done some Amiga stuff as well and some other things too, but I'll just skip right into the Dragon part. So here's the one for the floppy drive. Now you have to excuse the fact it's in Spanish, but you can see it kind of shows the dragons themselves here. Then it shows the actual Dragon drives, and it's got a list of the commands, the disk, including some that we did not have the equivalents of on the CoCo. And a few are slightly different, like disk init instead of disk ini. S read and S write for reading and writing sectors directly. We use disk I string and disk O string. As you can see, the syntax changes. The color basic and extended basic is pretty well identical between the two, CoCo and the Dragon, but the disk is quite different. And as David Ladd mentioned earlier, they natively supported up to 80-track double-sided right off the get-go, so that they were prepared to run these bigger programs. And there's also some other things like auto numbering for basic and beep and wait. Like we didn't have anything like that either. So it's just kind of interesting seeing, how their basic was different. And then they kind of get into some of the defaults of 40 track, 18 sectors, 256 byte per sector type thing. Formats to 175K. We got 153 or whatever, 160, I guess, raw. Next one here is the Dragon 64 one with lightning bolts and a Stranger Things sky in the background type of thing. And they mentioned, it came from the Dragon 32 line. Here they actually have some printers and stuff shown. This is where they start mentioning the OS9 stuff too. They mentioned Pascal based on the C compiler, which they've actually got the separate packaging for Software Professional for those types of things. Pictures of the motherboards and side of the Dragon showing you what's in it. Kind of descriptions here of the RAM and what ports are built in, the graphics modes, etc. Kind of giving a little spec sheet style thing. And where they were located if you wanted to go to Madrid.
Were the Eurohard dragons white or the yellow dragons?
They changed depending on when. I think the initial ones were done kind of like this yellowish, and they said Dragon 32, Dragon 64. Later on, they had, I think, the Dragon 200, which is more of a white case. It's still a Dragon 64, but basically kind of rebranded it a bit.
Most of Dragon 32s I've seen are kind of a grayish putty colored, and then there's a tan for the Tano and the 64.
Now, did they ever have trouble with retro writing, having to retro write at all?
You'd have to ask Kieran and some of the guys in the UK and Europe here to get that.
Pre-yellowed by the looks of them.
Right.
We'll solve this problem right off the bat. We'll make it yellow to begin with. You'll never notice.
black keys, so they won't go yellow.
That's a search. That's all. I wanted to see. That's all. So here, once again, they're showing off the artwork that they had built in for all the Dragon stuff, like full color cassette labels and stuff like that. And this is just for the Dragon 32. They got the joysticks listed there. And the specs for that one. And in comparison specs here against the VIC-20, the Atari 400, and the Acorn Atom.
What's redacted, I wonder?
Probably the guy's mailing address it got shipped to or something, I'm guessing. Or maybe it was an old address for Eurohard or something. I'm not sure. Once again, technical specs. And I actually understand C and no here, so you can see like extended Microsoft Basic, C on the Dragon, the Atari 400, but not on the Atom or the VIC-20. So.
Atari 400 maximum RAM 16K. That's BS. 48K.
I like the specification on the microprocessor 6809E and an evolution, I guess, or extension of 6502. It's better than this one.
Actually, that just meant external clock, but yeah.
Actually, the evolution.
Better.
What was that, Mark?
Yeah, the Spanish, the evolution probably. Evolution importance, important over the 6502.
Oh, okay. Because actually, I mean, Motorola sold 6809s and 609Es. One was internal clock, one was external clock. So I just automatically took that to be the chip
It's one of those advertising lie not lie kind of things.
Yeah.
It's like Taylor and Amy, 689 is greater than 6502, and they didn't want to piss off all the 6502 people. So they said numerically, that's true.
Look at what they got for the text for the Atari 400. 12 by 20. Doesn't sound right. It's got a 40 column screen.
No, it's a 40 column screen. Yeah, you're right. The graphic part's
way
right,
off.
320 by 192. But
yeah, they got the graphics, but the text is really way off.
You mean there's no truth in advertising?
No.
Really,
apparently.
You know what? I got my Tano set up with SDC, and I've been looking at games to, maybe port over or whatever, put on a disc. And I'm thinking to myself, now which one's? Oh, yeah, that's right. It's only 64K. It's like the CoCo 2. You have to keep reminding yourself that, it's at that level. It's not a CoCo 3.
Well, speaking of hooking an SDC up to Dragon, that's actually the next item here. Because there's some requests for this, and Mike Miller's uploaded a file of DOS plus version 5, which actually has been extended to use the SDC directly from Dragon DOS. And I've actually downloaded the little PDF here. So this gives you the new commands that are in DOS plus 5.0. I won't read them all here, but there's like mounting file names and stuff from the CoCo SDC, etc. Loading through DriveWire 4 as well.
That was nice to have, I must say.
And then these specific commands here at the end here are specifically for the SDC itself, period, including initializing new drives up to 720K, turning the drives on and off, basically the same stuff we've seen, extending our SDC DOS for disk basic, but taking into consideration some of the extra features the Dragon DOS had, like being able to support double-sided 80-track drives and stuff like that. So for those of you that have a Dragon, Tano or otherwise, and you also have the CoCo SDC, because it has that little dip switch you can flip forward to run in the Dragon properly, you've now got a DOS that fully supports it.
Yep, it works.
So you actually use a specific DW or DOS plus 5 on?
Yes, I have. Yeah. How does DriveWire hook up to it? I wonder.
I'm assuming it's the same as a CoCo SDC. You can define drive 0 and 1 as floppy images, and then 3 and 4 you can do DriveWire.
I meant physically.
Through the serial port, I would imagine same as the CoCo.
Yeah, that's a whole different hookup than it doesn't.
Well,
have
the Dragon 32 would be roughly the same because I think it just had a bit banger too, didn't it? The Dragon 64 had a real RS-232.
No, the Dragon 32 and Dragon 64 do not have a bit banger.
No.
They have the parallel port.
Oh, right. Yeah, they had a real parallel port right off the start. You're correct. I'm misremembering that.
So
now the Dragon 64 and the Tano have a 6551 built in.
Right.
But
which means they have a different cable than to hook up to DriveWire.
Okay, I've got something here from, I'll let you guys know Atari's better than I do. James Diffnapper in the chat is saying the Atari 400 came with 16K Max from Atari. You had to buy a third-party board to upgrade it and had to disassemble the machine to install it. I never owned one of these, so I don't know if that's true. The Atari 800 I know was advertised, 48K RAM right off the bat, but. And then Nigel, or who said that there? James also said the Dragon 200 was after the sale to the Spanish company, so after the sale to Gerhard from Dragon Data themselves, they started rebranding.
So what was the big upgrade to 200? What was the difference?
I think it was just rebranding. I don't think there was anything upgraded, to be honest.
Same case, same internal.
Different case, wasn't it?
Yeah, the case was a different color for sure. I'm not sure if they redesigned it per se, like changing ports or moving stuff around. I don't.
Well, the sticker was different.
Yeah, I've seen pictures of the Dragon 200 sticker there. So, all right, that's the end of the news today.
What?
Soon.
So soon?
You guys didn't get a chance to fall asleep.
Is that all? I didn't get a chance to call asparagus.
What, Ron? You want me to make up some more stuff? We can always talk about floppy drives and floppy disks.
Okay, let's see.
See you later.
A question.
Night, everybody.
Ron, to answer your question, Tom Eric Gunderson says his drive wire for his Dragon connects to the parallel port.
And apparently Tormod has made whatever cable that needs to do that.
Okay, then I'd have to buy a cable. Or know what the pinouts are and try to burn up.
That actually should be a higher speed one too, because it's actually jamming all 8 data lines in one shot versus one at a time on the bitbanger. So actually it should be a much faster interface.
Yeah, but with the parallel port, you could make it behave like a bitbanger.
Yeah, but
I think that's what they're doing though.
Yeah. Would they be reading and writing 8 bits at a time though? Like the
no, I think it's still bitbang serial.
They're just using, instead of using all 8 bits, they're just using one of the bits.
We're just guessing, aren't we?
You can only use those 8 bits if you're in the basement.
I do remember on the TC9 we had an 8-bit parallel, and we actually, Bill and I, the driver we did was read and write full 8 bits at a time, and it way less CPU overhead.
Yeah, but the host system for DriveWire is still running through serial port.
Yeah, but on an R32 pack, it does 8 bits at a time, and that driver works too. So it depends on how they implemented it, I guess.
Yeah.
It would be capable of doing 8 bits at a time like an R32 pack, hardware-wise. Whether they did that in the software, I don't know.
Would an RS-232 pack work on a Dragon?
You would need it. It's built into the Dragon 64.
You know what
exact
I mean?
same chip.
Since I don't have the hookup, could I put my multi-pack in and then stick my RS-232 pack in and make it work?
I have no idea. I don't have a Dragon, so
everybody's
speaking beyond my pay grade here.
That's it. Well, they do. I've heard that some people do use the multi-pack on the Dragon.
Yes, that part works. As far as the RS-232 pack, the ROM won't, but the cartridge itself should.
Okay, that's cool. So that's neat.
But once again, you probably wouldn't need it for DriveWire if you have a Dragon 64 because it already has the same chip built right in. Like it's just the cable. Right?
The one it's in, it's got a slow slew rate op amp. It's actually worse than the CoCo 1.
Beauty.
Really?
I think.
That seems kind of.
I think I might be wrong, or it might be at least equal to the CoCo 1 on the 6551's op amp for doing the level shifting. Which, if it is, then it's 38400.
So the Dragon invented nerfing long before anyone ever thought of it.
Well, you got to think most programs back then wouldn't go that fast because most modems don't go that fast then.
Yeah, this is back from the 300, 1200 baud days.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
There you go.
But there was something I was thinking about that would be doable. Is if the chip is socketed, you could make a little adapter board that then used a Max 232 chip to do the level shifting. And then you could get up to the full 115, 200 baud like I do with the RS-232 pack.
That isn't going to let smoke out?
Well, anybody that doesn't do it right, of course, would let the smoke out.
I will let the smoke out. You'll think I was a chain smoker by the time I was done with that sucker.
Smoke them if you got them.
All right. Tom posted a link to the Tormod DriveWire setup.
Oh, cool. Let's see what he says in there. Okay, HTTP DOS. DW load command has been added to replace the deload command. It's embedded in the basic ROM.
You want to throw the page up?
Oh, I suppose I could share that, couldn't I?
That would be too topical.
Bonus news. Here you go, guys.
Just when you thought it was safe to come back from the news.
Back to sleep.
Now it's a power nap because it shouldn't last long.
Uh-huh.
Or is this a core dump session?
Okay, so Parasarat in 2015 did the extended DOS Plus to give it the drive wire support. Nitrous 9 has support for it as well. DLO is designed to be so small it fits into unused parts of the Dragon basic ROM, which means it shouldn't screw up anything in there in the ROM. So direct ROM calls should still work, which is cool.
Drive wire adapter.
Drive
PC
wire.
running DriveWire Server 4. Now, DriveWire Server 4 is still the one that, you know, the latest versions of Java no longer work, right?
Yeah, that's the Java one.
So what are we looking at here? What's the first one, the second one?
What do you mean?
What are we looking at? The little box.
Oh, you mean like this?
Is that in a drive wire adapter?
I think the middle picture is inside the first picture.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's got a deluxe adapter and a regular
Or is it not? I don't know. No, something else. Okay.
Oh, the DriveWire Deluxe adapter, which is that little box, connects your Dragon to any modern computer having a USB port.
Okay.
It was doing
So it's a USB serial port.
Yeah, and that
PC.
other one's basically the interior of that box. You can buy it just as a
Okay.
raw thing, or you can buy it so it looks
Right.
pretty.
Yeah.
Maybe the plastic yellows, I don't know. And then there's the ROM with the extra DW load command to get things loaded.
I wonder if it's under $700.
I don't know. We're looks like we're getting the call for asparagus in the chat.
Yeah, from Frank. Anyway, cool. Yeah, it looks like there's full driver support there for the Dragon.
Yep.
So-
All you need is money and you're going. All right.
And
I'm
a dragon.
screwed. And a dragon, yeah.
Just that easy.
It doesn't really explain in that documentation though if it's any faster running through the parallel, if they're doing like 8 bits at a time, or if they're just doing one at a time, like Mark and Dave were speculating. So it didn't really answer my question. But
It's like talking to David Ladd.
Dave's good at that.
Okay, so what was the question again?
No. Asparagus.
Well, any project updates?
I'll have 2 brief ones and they'll just be mentioned, nothing to show. So first of all, Bill Noble has been pretty busy with a new job. I actually finally got a hold of him again for the first time in a couple of months, to be honest. Well, Wednesday, I texted him about 6:00 at night and he got back to me about 7:30. He just got off work. So that's why we haven't seen much of him. And he hasn't done much with Nitrous 9 because he's been busy. He has been working on his game though, and he sent me a screenshot and it's got some pretty cool features that are not normally seen in CoCo GUI, and that's about all I'm going to say until Bill's ready to show it off, but kind of a teaser. Number 2, I'd mentioned a couple weeks ago that there was some bugs found when Jim Gary was testing Basic 9, because I've been doing some patches to speed up some of the math routines on both CPUs and some other general optimizations. And found out it's actually in the CoVDG driver, which is a level 1 compatible graphics driver for Nitrous 9 level 2, Go 3. And turned out there was 2 bugs in the line command. One I did in beta 5. I was redoing some tables so my small brain can understand them better. And I accidentally duplicated a line and missed one. So it started shifting bits around it wasn't supposed to and would draw lines right 60% at the time, maybe, which he encountered. And then the second one is a bug that has been there since 2007. That actually is a glitch, and it doesn't affect it all the time. So I can see why I was missed, because I'd done some experiments with line command and I'd not seen this problem. But in certain cases, depending on the direction the line's going, how sharp of a peak it's going for drawing up or down, it would suddenly go off into Never Never Land and actually would crash the machine. So there's a game called Bomb Away. Now there's a Bomb Away for level 2 on EOU. It's a little, artillery style game. This is the original level 1 version that was for the CoCo 1, 2, and the Dragon originally, but should run on a CoCo 3 just fine. It didn't. In Jim's case, it would, depending on how it randomly picked the actual initial hill, scape and stuff like that, it would either draw it completely wrong and fill the screen with a whole bunch of white where it's supposed to not do anything, or it would crash the machine outright and actually freeze the CoCo up, so you had to reboot. So obviously a bad problem. So I did find both those bugs, fix them both. Jim has now been testing it since. Everything seems to be working fine now, so there'll be a bug fix coming in Lecture 9 version 1. And I'm back onto doing some other last-minute Basic 9 optimizations, and I'm going to test Frank's control panel. There's a couple of software installs I've got to do. Some of the stuff Todd Wallace has done over the last year. We'll be doing this as pre-done installs too. So it's getting a bit closer now, but we had to kind of stop for a couple of weeks to figure out those bugs because it was crashing things pretty bad. Locked the whole machine dead. So glad we found it. It's fixed now. So thanks to Jim Gary for finding that bug. And a few other people like James Jones and Alan Huffman, a few others are still testing. Wayne Campbell and a few others are still testing some of the other stuff. I'll have a few more things for them to test on this last little batch of stuff I'm doing. But yeah, so basically, if you write Basic 9 programs, you should see some minor speed ups depending on what you're doing. Otherwise, you won't see any speed ups at all, even on a 689 base system. The 609 Run B pack will definitely have some speed increases on floating point above what it has in the current beta 6.1. But even the CoCo or even the 689 people will get some minor speed increases. That's my updates.
Well, Frank's stuff is going to make EOU and much more easier. I mean, it's really cool what he's doing.
Yeah. I tested his previous beta a couple months ago here, and he sent me the other one like fairly recently, but I just haven't had time trying to track down this other bug here because I mean, having a new control panel that looks really pretty and has all the extra features of adding the other stuff that wasn't in the original control panel is nice, but if the machine's crashing because you just ran a Basic 9 program, I had to kind of fix that first. That was my priority.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's my updates.
Okay.
Now, when he does that work, you have to kind of update the documentation too then, huh?
Yep. Thank God I haven't got to the multi-view manual yet. That's actually fairly far off yet. I've still got to do the Basic 9 part and the commands part of the original level 2 manual, which I've gotten a start on one of those. I can't remember which one. I think it's commands part, but there's so many new commands, so many commands about syntax changes. It's a major project. And every time I get to starting it, I look at how big it's going to be and go, I'm going to go do something else now. I just kind of get off my butt.
Good luck and God bless, because I would like to read that manual.
Yeah. And Rick, I don't think your web browser in Basic 9, you're not using much floating point in there, are you?
No, I'm being dumb.
I didn't know if you had any file point or something. I will mention the latest changes I've been doing, and they're very minor because there's a lot of overhead to set these up anyway. But I'm actually speeding up parameter passing if you're calling subroutines, or not subroutines, but calling processes up, whether they're ML external ones or other packed Basic 9 modules, it'll be slightly faster.
Cool. The operational thing I want is the hotkeys. that will make the menus useful. I have lots of ideas for indent menus if they.
You mean other than the hotkey I've got in there now that we had?
Well, the hotkeys that are, I guess it's not in graphics until 1.0 comes out, so I can just like Alt key while I'm typing, and that triggers.
So that's working on the early release you've got.
Yes, it does work.
Patrick. Yeah,
so,
that'll be part of version 1, but it's not in version 6.1 yet.
So that's the one that I want to see because there's lots of ideas for that. It's going to really make CoCo menus grow up in a hurry.
Okay.
As opposed to having to.
I will guarantee that will be in there.
I got to get the mouse. I got to find the mouse and open the menu and click on the thing. Instead, I know, Alt B is bookmarks. I can just Alt B while I'm typing along, and there I am. So that's a very cool thing that CoCo never had. So
yeah, cool.
Thank you. Oh, and I took a picture of the neighbor's house earlier. So if I don't show up later, Ixnay on Vaedu. Ixnay on Vaedu.
It's like the whole Secret Service is out there.
There's no black helicopter. What are you worried about?
It isn't in the shop, but there was a weird thump sound going on. That's their choice of vehicles. I don't know.
The men in black live there or what?
Right. Well, that's my hot neighbor and her I don't know, buddies.
Hey, just think of this. They don't have to retro-write those cars.
Right?
All
Anybody
right.
else have any project updates or acquisitions before we finish the show up?
Nope, I just need to get back to my high density modifications.
Ooh.
God.
Yeah.
It looks like
Good
Ken
night.
needs to go. Ken needs to go jump in a lake.
Is he melting?
The
Well,
incredible
you
melting
promised-
Ken.
You promised us to jump in the lake in the middle of the show.
They were still waiting.
I
That's why
was-
the show's been stretched out. I kept buying you time.
I was too busy sleeping through the news. it's warm. The news was going. It just felt like the perfect time for a nap.
It's a good feeling, isn't it?
Yeah.
Jason, you ought to shoot out fireworks while you're working there.
Well, we're currently here 36 degrees Celsius, so that's 97, I think. Fahrenheit.
Darn warm.
Mine says 40.
Yeah, 40 is 104 Fahrenheit. I know that. So.
Yeah.
We're
only 30
Yeah.
here, so
That's like
So
97.
7 degrees less than that. Yeah, 97. We're at 97.
Yeah, it's like
right now.
96.8 if you want to get really down to the decimal.
We're going to be 107 today.
Oh,
We're at our maximum right
are we
now,
all
I
reporting
hope.
our temperatures now?
Yes.
Well, this
Oh
is
yeah,
how
Todd
we-
Wallace added that weather app for Nitrous 9 coming out. So yeah, it's kind of like a real-time clock now.
Well, this
Yeah.
is how you
Yeah.
win at WeFax.
Right.
Yeah,
Erica's
it's,
Who
one.
records the highest temperature?
It's cold today. It's we're currently at 77 degrees Fahrenheit.
I know Amy from the Taylor and Amy show texted me and Ken earlier. She said, it's getting really hot in Memphis because they've been going beyond 40. It's getting more to Arizona temperatures. And she said, this is a literal picture of Memphis right now. And it has a picture of the sun with some corona and stuff firing off. And then it points a little dot and says Memphis.
That's great.
All right. Well, let me run the outro then.
Push the button.
This concludes another episode of CoCoTALK, the world's leading live talk show featuring the Tandy Color computer, MC10, and Dragon systems. For all things CoCoTALK, visit us on the web at cocotalk.live. We'd love to hear from you. Send feedback, suggestions, even segments via email to cocotalk@cocotalk.live. Consider supporting the show with a purchase of merchandise from our retro swag shop at 8bit256.com. If you'd like to become a patron of the show, click on the Patreon link on our website, cocotalk.live. CoCoTALK would not exist without the community, its cast, crew, and contributors. Thanks go to Alan Murphy, Amigos Retro Gaming, Bill Noble, Brian Joyce, Brian Weaver, Curtis Boyle, D. Bruce Moore, Danny O'Connor, David Ladd, Eric Canales, George Jansen, Grant Leedy, James Diffendapper, Jason Reichert, Jim Brain, Ken Reichert, Ken Waters, Mark Bosley, Mark Overholzer, Mikey Furman, Mr. Dave 6309, Nick Marentes, Nick Marotta, Nick Marotta, Nick Marotta, Paul Fiscarelli, Richard Lorbieski, Rick Adams, Rick Hewlin, Rob Inman, Ron Delvaux, Samuel Gimes, Sloopy Malibu, Steve Bjork, Terry Steggy, Tom C., and many, many more. Please help support the CoCo community. A list of various contributors and resources are available at imacoconut.com. That's IMACOCONUT.com. The original CoCoTALK theme song is copyright 2008 by D. Bruce Moore and Greg Sheeler. The new CoCoTALK theme song is copyright 2020 by D. Bruce Moore. Both are mixed, mastered, and produced by D. Bruce Moore. CoCo forever!
And we're back to final thoughts.
We're back. I thought we just left.
Well, the outro's done. You know what? I
Right.
think we're all just fried.
I think after all that Dragon drive wire talk, I think that just wore everybody out.
I didn't even. Was Steve here?
No, no show.
No. Hey, and we're in the Hollywood Squares configuration, so I'll take Grant Leedy to block.
I'll take a quick mention here because I just got an email from Torsten, and he said Torsten Dittel, which is Torsten Sita on Discord, and the Kathy Sita on Facebook is all him. So he just verified all that. As he said, he just uses his wife's account because he never joined Facebook personally, and I know some other people have done that too. So that makes sense.
Right.
But thanks for clearing up the confusion because I was confused.
Yeah, understandably so.
I mean, some people claim that's my natural state, including me, but still.
Next week's going to come fast.
Yeah, that's it. Okay. Oh, and even Kevin Holloway wants you to push the button, Frank.
That's right. Well, goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye, everybody.
See you all next week. I think we've overstayed our welcome.
Bye,
goodbye, everybody.
We fax